to acknowledge the communications that were received. We are not. Do it. No, the regular was need to. Okay. Well, that's what I think.
Part of my.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you.
No, I don't get that. I got it too.
All right, folks, it is 7:02. We're gonna go ahead and call to order the this Board of Education budget meeting. And I would invite everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, our main order of business this evening is to review and discuss the 2026-2027 Superintendent of Schools proposed budget, which the Board of Education has had the opportunity to review over the last week. And I think before we get into any discussion, I'm just going to kick it over to Dr. Britton to give your presentation, and then there'll be plenty of time for discussion and questions, board members.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me online? Okay. Oh, welcome. So just a couple of housekeeping. I'm going to be referring to the PowerPoint. That's why I had you set up like this. Also here tonight, we have all of the leadership team. So if you have questions about specific buildings or departments, they're going to come up to that podium and answer those questions at any point that you have them tonight. And of course, I made you copies of the PowerPoint. I don't know about you, but I like taking notes. So you have copies of the PowerPoints, and then Trisha also has an additional copy that of some information I'm going to provide to you tonight. So really quick housekeeping, just to kind of let you know what our goal for this evening is per our town's charter and your bylaws as a board. The process has me developing a superintendent's budget. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about tonight about the process we use and what's contained in that budget. I bring that to you tonight, and then we have another workshop scheduled Thursday. If we get through everything tonight, and we can cancel Thursday, that's fine. If we need that time, we can use it too. Ultimately, the goal is hopefully by 1 week from today for the board to be taking action on a budget. So the way the process is set up is I bring you a budget. It's my budget. You can obviously make additions, change it in any way you want. Start over, whatever you feel like you need to do to the budget. This is your prerogative, so that when you vote on your budget, it becomes your budget, right? So after you vote, you'll take action on a budget. It's then the Board of Education budget. I will, of course, strongly advocate for that, but that's the budget that goes to the Board of Selectmen, first selectmen for their review. Pending that review and those discussions that happen later on in the winter, early spring, then of course the budget is then moved to a town referendum in May. So let me just stop there, and particularly Ann or Aaron, do you have any questions about the process?
Not right now.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
Thank
all
you
right,
for
Just gonna
answering
watch for now.
questions earlier.
Good.
And I have the questions printed.
good. Write your questions down, and what I'll do is I'll pause between slides and sort of at that point, ask if there are any questions as we go along. And then, of course, there will be time for Q&A at the end. And at any time, if you want one of the principals or Sarah or Chuck to come up and engage or answer questions, they can do that too. And of course, our key person in this whole process will be Stephanie. You see her there with her computer. She has all of the spreadsheets and all of the information available to answer questions as you make changes or ask for, moving things or whatever you'd like to do within the various line items. Okay, so this is my presentation. This is the 26-27 superintendent's budget. I have the workshops for today and Thursday listed up here as those dates. Can we fast forward to the next slide, please? All right, so in total, my request is for $27,218,420. This is a 4.99% increase over this year's current adopted budget. Next slide, please. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about the budget development process, because, I believe, one, in transparency, and two, that I honestly share with you those needs that we have in the district, even in cases where I've reduced some of those needs from the requests. It's a lot of work, right? It's an awful lot of work to put this together, and I have a really strong team of administrators that help me. So this is it's a collaborative process. I will tell you, honestly, I don't support everything in this budget. I don't. I know that there are people in this room that don't support everything in this budget. You may hear about that tonight. I encourage anybody to, I try to be transparent. Say how you feel about these things. A lot of the cuts that I'm proposing, are trying to find that sweet spot with what's reasonable and what I think the town can support. So this is a difficult budget. There's something in it for everybody to hate. We'll start there. So for the process here, it started way back in November. And what I did is Stephanie put her budget book together and we approached all of the department and building leaders. And I said, I want you to go bring me everything you think you need, right? I don't put any kind of restrictions on those requests. I don't say it must be within 1% or 2%. I say, bring me what you need. That's not a waste of time. It's very important because I want to hear what you need so that even if I'm making cuts, I'm potentially identifying other things like Ryan Fund or Gildersleeve Grant or other grants and opportunities that we might be able to use to fund those things, or end of year savings if we have any. And of course, it's really important for me to hear what the principals need in their buildings and what their faculty and staff needs. So in November, I sort of say, bring me your requests. Now, I know these principals. They're seasoned veterans. They're also reasonable people. They are also making cuts along the way as they meet with their department chairs and team leaders. So the process involves them vetting what they think they need and then coming to me with those requests that they think would help move our district forward. I also began with a couple of assumptions. Stephanie and I sat down and said, we are going to endeavor to have all current certified, non-certified, classified, and stipended positions carried over. That was one of the things that I asked Stephanie to do. I said, take everybody, apply contractual general wage increases and carry them forward. We began the process in November with the idea that we wouldn't be making any reductions to faculty, staff, or stipended positions. That, of course, necessitated taking a look at all of our contractual obligations, general wage increase, service increases, all number of different contracts that we have with our bargaining units and vendors, calculating those and carrying them forward. And then, of course, our ultimate goal was to continue to provide the same academic, co-curricular, extracurricular, athletic, sort of a repeat of what students are enjoying this year. We'd like to carry that over into next year. Within all that, I was hoping to bring you a budget with no more than a 5% increase. Okay, now, how did I get the 5%? As you know, we met with a board retreat. We started talking about some of these things in the middle of December, right? And I put that out there. I said, here are the things I'm working from. And, 5% is where I think I'm coming in at. And I saw a lot of head nodding that, Charles, if you could accomplish these things and bring us a budget under 5%, that would be something I think the board was signaling to me would be appreciated. Now, would I love to bring you a 3% budget or a 2% budget? Of course, but I think what you'll see tonight is there are some budget drivers that are absolutely outside of my control, that are unconscionable, that reflect what I perceive as a broken system in many different ways that really makes that 3 or 2 or even 4% budget very difficult to achieve. That said, I got it at 4.99. Next slide, please. Okay. So I just want to mention that Stephanie and I worked very hard. We were here the entire week of vacation with the exception of New Year's Day. Stephanie and I were here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, working our best to put this together. It's very difficult this year to build a budget in December because we still have certain things, certain drivers that even at this moment we are unsure about. Specifically, we don't know what the health insurance increase is going to be. I'm going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about what health insurance is doing to us. We're still figuring out the census changes. That's what's happening within who's taking insurance and at what level. We have 3 contracts that haven't been settled entirely yet. Our custodian's contract is still being ratified. We're still working on our paraprofessional contract, and we're still working on our transportation contract. So health insurance, 3 contracts we're still negotiating. And of course, asking Sarah in particular to look out 12 to 14 months in terms of what she might anticipate for student support service needs is very difficult. So building a budget in December, looking out over a year and a half ahead where we might be is very complicated. So I'm sort of setting you up to hear me say, I'm doing my best. I'm making some guesses, some very well-informed guesses, but some of the things in the budget are definitely not settled yet. As we go through the process of finishing contract negotiations, determining the census, looking at student support service needs, and finishing with our health insurance premium increases, this budget, I promise you, will change. It's either going to go up or down. Sometimes things work for us, sometimes they don't, but we still have quite a bit of work to do. That said, Stephanie and I worked, and we're happy to answer questions or provide you our logic behind these assumptions within the budget that you have in front of you tonight. First, we were able and still are able to calculate general wage increase and service contract increases. We're working with all of our vendors. We have most of our contracts settled. We know what the general wage increases and service increases are going to be. I'm pretty confident with most of those, with the exception of the transportation, custodian, and paraprofessional contract. We did our best working with Sarah to make adjustments aligned with our student support service needs. We looked at what our outplacements are, what Sarah projects will be ongoing outplacements, what students may come back from outplacement, all of the transportation costs associated with those outplacements. We did our best, but again, as you know, especially in the world of special education, Sarah will tell you, and I will, things change quickly and regularly based on new and emerging student needs. Initially, I put in an 8% placeholder for health insurance. Now, in December, I had my very first conversation with our broker. So we have an insurance broker. She goes out and tries to find us the best rates. We're currently using Anthem as our insurance vendor. When I spoke with our broker in December, she said, "Oof, Charles, it's not looking good." Her exact words. I said, "Well, what's the increase?" And Lynn, and she said, "I can't tell you yet, but it's going to go up." Now, at that time, I put in 8%. Why 8%? Because in my mind, 8% is huge, right? In my mind at that time, 8% is unreasonably large. So I put 8% in. Now that has changed, and I'm going to spend a lot of time with that. But the back in December, I asked Stephanie, put in 8% placeholder for health insurance. Lord, I wish it would be 8% now. Even thinking that that was an unreasonably large increase, now it looks reasonable based on the numbers I'm hearing, which I will make sure you're all seated before I share those with you. Additionally, Stephanie and I surveyed the whole faculty, asked people whether they're going to join or change their insurance. Now, a very interesting thing has happened in the district. We've done a great job of hiring very young and new teachers in some cases. Under the Affordable Care Act, lots of young people can stay on their parents' insurance until they're 25. After 25, they need to take their own insurance. We have several young teachers who are reaching the age of 25 and have signaled that they want to join our insurance plan at an individual level, which they should. Never go without insurance, everybody. I mean, that's the message we need to deliver to everybody. Additionally, we are enjoying something of a baby boom here in Portland. A lot of our young teachers are having children. What happens then is that folks taking the insurance oftentimes with a two-person plan, and they have children, then move from a two-person plan to a family plan. All of those are things that Stephanie budget for. So we put out that survey, and we did see a change in the census. And the census is those people taking insurance and at what level they're taking insurance. So 8% increase overall for insurance, plus more people asking to take health insurance because they're either aging out of their parents' plan or having children or going through life circumstances where they're adjusting their plans. Let me stop that. It's a lot. I'm giving you a lot of information. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep rolling. Stephanie then has to calculate FICA taxes. You know, we have to pay these things to the federal government. These are Medicare, Medicaid, and other types of insurance that come out as payroll deductions. We also have to increase pensions for classified employees. Some are on the defined pension plan, and some are on the town pension plan, depending on how many years they've been here. Now, as we know, certified employees pay into the teacher retirement board, but classified employees, we have to pay additional for either as contributions, if it's a defined benefit plan, or if they're in the old plans for the town. So Stephanie had to calculate who and how much to budget for our liabilities associated with pension costs. Also, minimum wage went up. So we had to adjust our minimum wage. And this year, while not perfect, we are enjoying better fill rates for substitute teachers in particular. So we're paying substitutes more and we're getting more substitutes, both of which are driving up the costs for substitute teachers. We also had to figure out all discretionary line items and then back in our revenue sources, what we're getting from IDEA, ECS, excess costs, title grants, mental health support grants, all of the open choice, all of the revenue sources that help offset a lot of these costs. That was a lot. Any questions?
Can I ask quickly
Yep.
about the increased pension contributions that, there was some conversation that came up during negotiations that had been renegotiated by the town.
2027.
And that
Not this
that was
year.
my question. That doesn't go into effect this year. That will go into effect next year's budget. Thank you.
Good. Awesome. Okay, next slide, please. So if I took all of what the principals brought to me and all of the calculations that you saw on the last page, right? Well, I should back up. Health insurance.
I see that big one.
Then I had a second conversation in late December with our insurance broker. She told me, and I'm glad you're sitting, that the Anthem renewal initial bid came in with a 26.9% increase. That is unfathomable. That is crushing. That's not just the Board of Ed, that's town too, because we're in this pool together. That was so upsetting to hear. And it's upsetting for two reasons. Right? Reason one, yes, it affects what the Board of Ed pays in terms of our cost share to the premiums. But it's also going to crush everybody who's buying insurance with the district. All of our bargaining units and everybody in here who takes insurance from the district pays a percentage, depending on bargaining unit, of their premium. That percentage, if it increases by 26.9%, I promise you will wipe out any raise people get, and people will get their check next year and immediately call Jen Gochi and say, I think there's a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm making less this year than I did last year. And Jenny will say, that's not a mistake. If you look at the deduction from your check that reflects your premium cost share, it went up. This is crushing to us, absolutely crushing to the board side and what we have to ask our taxpayers for, and for the contributors who are relying on our insurance to take care of themselves and our family. This is crushing. So if I took the requests brought to me from all of the principals and I budgeted 26.9%, the budget I would be sharing with you tonight would be over 12%. Now, there is no way I'm going to bring you a 12% budget. I'm not going to do it. And I would strongly encourage you not to bring a 12% budget to the town of Portland, especially now, right? We need to be perceived as reasonable. We need to be perceived as good stewards of taxpayer money. And especially now, we need our community's confidence as we build support for a pending bonding referendum this spring. So this is not the time in any way to go forward to the town with a budget request that reflects anything other than our bare minimum needs. And frankly, what I'm going to share with you tonight is under our bare minimum needs. That's a conversation for you to have tonight. If you're like, put the 12% in, we would do that. I would strongly advise against that for all of those reasons.
Get the turn. Yeah.
So to get us back to 5%, I made some tweaks, right? I did some adjustments to the census projections that are still evolving. I increased from 8% to 13%. I wouldn't go all the way to 26.9, but we might have to, right? I got us to 13%, right? That's where I am now. The budget you have in front of you is at 13%. And I have more information about that shortly. And I said to all of the principals, I'm sorry for all of your requests, but I'm flat funding you, right? I'm looking at what you got this year. That's what you're getting next year. That means all of the requests for new things that the principals brought me and more coming to you shortly, were reduced. Now, Trisha, I'm gonna ask her to hand out, because I've promised the principals. Trish, can you hand out the cuts? Oh, they have, good.
Thank you.
On that handout there is a whole list of everything the folks in this room asked for, but I said you're flat funded and it's cut, right? So these are the things that would be great to have, but I've cut. Now, in some of those cases, we're gonna look for potentially end of year funding, potentially Gildersleeve grants, potentially Ryan Fund, other revenue sources. But as of now, everything on that sheet are things that the principals or department heads asked for that I reduced. So I share that with you because they did a lot of work putting that together. And also I want you to see their efforts to get us back to a reasonable budget. Any questions so far?
Can I ask what made you pick 13%? Are you hopeful? Like the broker was like, I'm gonna really try hard, or what?
Yes. So I have more information on that.
Cool.
Let me come back to it.
Okay.
'Cause I want to talk a little bit about insurance, that 13% and what I've heard yesterday,
Mhm.
which is new news, and set you up for a conversation that we're going to be having with our insurance broker Thursday.
Oh, the insurance broker will be here?
We'll be on a Zoom with the insurance broker Thursday. So I have some late breaking news. Again, this is the problem building a budget in December.
Yeah.
All of these things are ongoing, but I'll get back to the logic for the 13%.
My point was, last year, we had the same hysteria of a large percentage and then it came in lower. So I just want to make sure that part of this factor.
Yeah, so let me just kind of step away from the slide and talk a little bit about insurance because the questions came up. Part of what drives private companies who are trying to make a profit, which is a function of a broken healthcare system in the United States of America, ad lib, is that those people who want to make money look at our pool and say, how much money are we making off of that? Right? If they see people in our pool who are using a lot of their money to pay those medical bills, they're going to tax the entire pool to reclaim that as part of that's the sharing pool nature of it, which doesn't work in a capitalist system. But again, I digress. Okay. They looked last year at the usage rates, and that's why we went out to bid, because we had certain members of the pool using a large amount, high cap claims. The hope was that those high cap claims would go away in the second year. That's always the hope, because people get better. You know, you use a lot of health insurance one year and you get healthy, and you're not using a lot of health insurance next year. What I've heard from our broker is that those people who are using a lot of health insurance may have the type of conditions that they're going to continue using a lot of health insurance in order to stay viable, alive, and well. So now they're looking at year 2, and in some cases year 3, of continued high cap claims and saying, in order for us to insure you and still make a profit, you're looking at a 27% increase. So this train has been coming down the tracks at us. We jumped off the tracks last year when we switched from one carrier to another, but now we're right back in the same boat because the claims haven't moved that much. That was a lot. Did everybody follow that? That's really important level of detail. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Even with these changes, adjusting to 13%, flat funding, the departments, I would have still been above 5%, significantly above 5%. I would have been well, like, I think if I remember 6.32, yeah, right. It was 7-something. We would have been well above 5%, right? Ugh, now it gets hard, right? So next slide, please. So that was the first round. In order to get back under 5%, I had to make really hard cuts. Now, before I go through these with you, I want to say, do I support these cuts? Absolutely not. Do I support a 12% budget? Sorry, I can't. I have to we have to find a way to thread the needle and land in a place that's palatable for our community. So these cuts are hard. And if you ask the principals, they'll tell you in the department, they don't support them either. But I think we all recognize this is what we have to do when we're faced with the kind of increases that are outside of our control that we're being confronted with. So I want to go through these cuts and talk a little bit about the impact of them. And I want to start by saying I have them rank ordered in how I would put them back. Okay, so this order here is if you ask me if the insurance comes in lower or we increase a revenue source, which is something we're talking about, side note. Or we get more ECS funding because Meg goes and beats up the state and gets the senators to increase the foundation. Right?
Sure, yeah.
My eggs are in the Meg basket.
Right.
Yeah,
Or if Sarah brings back an outplacement, right? If there's anything we can do to offset these increases, I would start putting things back in this order, starting with I've reduced one FTE K6 teacher. I do not want to do that, right? By doing that, we're not hedged against a potentially large kindergarten class, and we will see class sizes increase on average in other places, which I'll share with you tonight. So that's the first one I would get back in. I would ask to be put back in right away if the revenue streams become available to do that. We've also reduced one FTE paraprofessional. You know, we make those adjustments every year based on need. Chopping this now, I have a feeling I'll be back to you in the spring asking for it back, or in the fall asking for it back, but I would put it back in there because it is a need, right? But again, we're in tough times here. I did reduce Sarah's budget by $30,000. You can see on that sheet that I handed you where she made those reductions. Again, I would put that back. Student support services is not something you want to underfund. Stephanie will be biting her cuticles next year as assessments and testing and things start to happen and we start to see those bills roll in. I did reduce district stipends by $20,000. I'm not prepared tonight to tell you exactly where that's coming from. That will be some hard conversations we have with the leadership team and the Teachers Association this spring as we write the MOU for district curriculum, extracurricular, athletic, and stipended positions. I did eliminate the fall and the spring athletic coordinator position. I've left winter. That is essential that we keep that based on the time demands for evenings and weekends, especially with basketball and wrestling, even right up to tonight. I was watching the girls' basketball game. But I would love to see us get that fall and spring athletic coordinator position back. It helps us run a very efficient and safe system without overly taxing and burdening principals, our dean of students, site directors and others. So if we can get that back, it would be wonderful. Then there's this board certified behavior analyst. Now, I need to be clear. I'm not suggesting we cut that position. We need a district level board certified behavior analyst. Currently, we have a classified board certified behavior analyst. Classified folks are not subject to contractual terms of people in the teacher's bargaining unit. I can't negotiate one-on-one with any teacher or administrator. I can negotiate with their bargaining unit. And or the board does, once the contract is set, placement, salary, and benefits is defined by the contract. Classified people like Stephanie are people that every year, they're at-will employees, can negotiate their salary with me. They're also at-will employees, and they're not protected by associations. The board certified behavior analyst position now is very expensive. It is a very valuable position. We need it. Currently, the position is it's not cheap, right? The plan is to take a board certified behavior analyst who is also a certified school psychologist and is in the teacher's bargaining unit and make that individual the district board certified behavior analyst. So we're not cutting the position, we're cutting the classified nature of the positions. That's a little nuanced, and I want to stop and see if there are any questions about that. Okay, keep moving. This kills me, but we've reduced all summer curriculum writing funds. Now, what's my hope? That we could either put it back, or if we have end of year savings and our teachers are willing to do curriculum work before July 1, the last 2 weeks of June could be a time that we use. And this year's, if we have end of year savings, and you heard what Stephanie said last time about what we got for excess cost reimbursement, which is great news, that we could have some folks do curriculum writing either at the end of June or if other revenue streams become available, curriculum writing is essential to the work of our district. It's really important that we fund that, but for now, it's cut with the hope that we could add it back through other sources. We reduced the facilities department by 50,000. Ouch. Again, any end of year funds like we did last year, I will suggest, and Stephanie will suggest, that we apply them immediately back to the facilities department to pre-buy supplies or otherwise offset some of these cuts. We did cut some technology hardware and desktops. I'll talk to you a little bit about the capital budget that Stephanie and I presented tonight. Recoup some of that there. And also I'm hoping if there's any end of year surplus funds, we could purchase some of these desktops or a small board computers. Stephanie increased excess costs. Originally she had it at 60%. She increased it to 72. Why 72? That's what we got this year. That said, you all know what happened 2 years ago, right? When Stephanie had it at 72, and then in one email in the middle of the school year, it was 60? 59, right? That and new outplacements immediately put us in a $350,000 deficit. That was the worst year of my career here. Stressing about that right up until June before we knew we were getting the supplemental. That was awful, right? So this is a gamble, right? Would I love to see us put this at 60% and much like this year, be pleasantly surprised to have it come in at 72? I would, but I said, Stephanie, rolling the dice here, put it at 72. Before you leave tonight, Trisha has the letters for you to sign to,
Circulating.
oh, good. Sign that letter and we'll underline the excess cost. Like fully fund that, because that's the amount that we're expecting next year. If that amount doesn't come in, it's going to be a very stressful day. And then, of course, I went to the building principals and department leaders and I said, even though I flat funded you, now I need you to reduce 2% from your flat funding. Ouch, right? So, you know, the haircuts the buildings have been taking all these years. This is the only, like, the tiny little piece of the budget that we have any influence over. So the buildings are getting 2% less next year than they got this year, right? Those cuts are also on those sheets that you see in front. So again, you see why I have to say I don't support any of these. They're all awful in their own ways, but you know, it's where we are. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions about the second round of cuts.
I think the one thing I'm curious about is you mentioned a $30,000 cut to student support services, but the things you cut would add up to a lot more than 30,000.
Sarah, do you want to address that? What exactly those reductions you made were?
With a couple outplacements, for example.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So what I put on there is everything from that stage one. So stage one, when I gave Charles my budget, was 2 ghost outplacements, because every year, unfortunately, we have at least 1 child outplaced, and all those other items. So both of the ghost outplacements were cut before stage 2. So maybe others were a little more judicious about putting when it was cut. Those are all the things that I asked for the department. And then you see kind of where we landed. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So that's all the very, very bad news, right? Now, if we can fast forward a slide here. I do want to spend some time talking about what is in the budget. So I kind of just went over a lot of the assumptions and the cuts we've made, but now I want to talk to you about what is included in the 4.99% increase. And I want to do that first by a snapshot of our staffing, and I'm going to pause at a couple of buildings to point a few things out. Okay. So next slide, please. So this is Valley View staffing profile. Roughly the same as this year. The gamble here is 5 sections of kindergarten, right? Generally speaking, the number I look at for kindergarten students is 90. If we're above 90, that needs the 6th section of kindergarten, right? To keep our class sizes where we like them at kindergarten level. Otherwise, not much has changed at all at Valley View. It's just what the placeholder is that we're putting in for kindergarten, and that right now is 5, and that's why I have a star on that.
Charles, can I just, I mean, I know we keep our eye on that number every single year. We also are fortunate in this moment to have had not 1, not 2, but 3 enrollment projections.
Yep.
So to refresh our memory, in looking at what Peter Prouda produced for us,
I believe the number was 85.
he was estimating mid-80s for this incoming class. So we have good reason to believe that we should be under that 90 threshold and that 5 kindergarten classes should do it for us.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's the hope. So Valley View, not a lot of changes. Next slide, please. Gildersleeve. Okay, here I have a star on second grade. If we were to get that sixth teacher back, that's where I would put it. Right now at this, the class size would be 19. I don't want to cut any K6 teachers. I don't want to do it. I want to fight like heck to get that back. Put it in second grade and then say, hey, if we have more than 90 kids, we're going to reduce to 5 sections and redeploy that teacher, right? But if we have fewer than 90 students, we keep we plan for 6 sections of second grade, okay? So again, that's why in my list order of priorities, I think this board and my top priority is always about class size. I'd like to keep that class size well under 19, unless we're in a situation where we have to add the section to kindergarten, because we cannot have kindergarten class sizes. You know, I think above 16 or 17 is probably too high. I mean, the number 90 is sort of the place where my comfort level ends in terms of where we land with 5 teachers. So that's why I have that one starred there. Questions about Gilder? Otherwise, no change at Gilders. Okay, next one, and this does need some discussion. Okay, Brownstone. You'll notice here that next year we're only going to have 4 sections of 5th and 4 sections of 6th grade. Everybody in Portland, middle school and high school, you need to be aware there's a small cohort coming. They're in 5th and 6th grade next year. Eventually, they're going to be in 6th and 7th, and 7th and 8th, and 8th and 9th, and 9th and 12th, right? You know, at some point, you know, I understand we can't divide people in half, and Dave made a very good point. He said, you know, with it in a place of declining enrollment, are you making staffing adjustments? The answer to that is yes. Consolidation is ultimately the part of the solution here, moving the 6th grade to the middle school. But for next year, Brownstone will be smaller than it's ever been since I've been here, based on the size of our current 5th grade and the size of our current 4th grade, who are going to be 5th and 6th next year. That gives us some opportunities, though, to redeploy our reading teacher, math interventionist, library, media, art, music, PE. One of the things that's a really exciting opportunity is we're going to try to take our library media specialist from Brownstone and bring her up to the middle school so she'll be 0.6 Brownstone, 0.4 middle school, which would then enable us to have the full-time librarian be at the high school. It's been a long-term goal for us to get a librarian at the middle school. We have 2 libraries, but we only have 1 librarian. We share our current librarian. In this 1 year, now it would only be for the 1 year because we have this small group. It does give us an opportunity to redeploy library media. I've also had conversations with Tracy, Mike, and Joe, and we will also be redeploying our other specials teachers and interventionists because the sections are going up, especially if we can add that 2nd grade back at Gilders. So Brownstone population is going down, which is going to require us to adjust the 5th and 6th grade FTE count. And then I want to keep everybody at full time and redeploy them. I do not recommend reducing full-time people to any like 0.8 or 0.6 level because you lose good people that way, right? And we do have other needs like the librarian here at the middle school and other services we can provide to students in a combination of Valley View, Gildersleeve, and the middle school. That was a lot. Did I lose you?
No.
No. Okay. Next slide. Middle school, again, middle school potentially gaining next year if we can provide them 0.4 FTE library media, and high school gaining if we can make our current librarian full-time at the high school. Next slide. High school, again, no changes there. And again, hopefully adding full-time library. Okay, next slide. All right, student support services. Here are all the positions that are the only difference here is you'll notice BCBA is moved from classified to certified. And then I do just want to take a step away from this slide and talk about these 2 really exciting opportunities. included in the budget, I think I said in my email today, $60,000. I was corrected by Stephanie. That number is
54 with
50.
supplies.
with the supplies. We have
50 for the rent and utilities and that piece, 4 for supplies.
got it. So in the budget that you see in front of you is $50,000 to pay rent and $4,000 for supplies to move our transition program from the high school to a Main Street location. Now, once we get approval for that, once we vet that idea, we haven't entered into that. I haven't signed any leases yet, but it's a nice place. We've had lots of conversations with the landlord. Sarah can certainly explain more about what the vision for that is. It's an amazing opportunity. And if we do that, it also gives us a chance to potentially tuition in students from other towns into the transition program and at least be revenue neutral, or maybe even start making a little bit of money in terms of revenue flow. So in your budget is the idea that we lease a location on Main Street. You can see it's right next to the police department. It needs a little work, but it looks like it's really cool. Great location to offer a transition program. Additionally, we do have an opportunity to lease some space to a program called Saybrook Reading. More information is coming on that. We just had one discussion yesterday. I have more discussions this week. Not ready to fully present that completely developed idea yet, but if we moved the transition program, leased the space, the revenue from the lease and potential tuition students would, I think, more than offset the cost for that lease, right? And maybe help us put back to start with that one K-6 teacher. So more to come on that, but in your budget now is funding for the lease and supplies to move transition from the secondary school to the Main Street location. Okay, next slide.
And just to be, sorry, minor
Yep.
clarification, we're not in this, as we envision this budget, we are not making an estimate about potential revenue from Saybrook Reading or revenue from tuitioning in students to the transition program. That is going to be looked at separately.
Right. I'm going to get to the revenue slide.
Yeah.
You will not see either of those two things on the
Listed
revenue
there.
slide.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
the 4.99 counts it as a pure expense and doesn't count on any revenue. Good clarification.
I have one question for the next slide. There are 56 paraprofessionals listed under student services and then 6 under the high school.
Yeah, I'm
Is
sorry.
the
Yeah,
56 inclusive of the 6 at the high school?
I put them all under sports services. So
Okay.
that's draw the line through that one. Okay, teaching and learning, no change. Next slide. Facilities, no change. Next slide, central office, no change. And then we're to the revenues. So let me just pause here for a quick second and say, there's always been a little bit of confusion about what's in the budget. You know, the amount that I'm requesting, the $27,218,218, that is not how much we spend. The amount we spend is 29 million, right? The 27 million is what's called the LEA budget. So when Stephanie and I are saying LEA budget, we're talking about two things. One, that which we get from the town of Portland. Revenue comes in largely from property taxpayers. That's part of it. And then LEA also includes the ECS grant. That's the one that Meg is fighting so hard to get the state to increase the base amount, which hasn't been increased since 2013, right? I know you're fighting hard, Meg, keep it up. Also, sign the letter. That's in the letter, right? We're asking the state legislature to increase that foundational amount. So we're projecting, we know that for our ECS grant, we're getting $4,996,450, an increase of 0. That's the same amount we got this year, no increase from last year. We're asking the town to increase their contribution to 4.99%. So the revenue sources that we receive are LEA, which is Town of Portland Property Taxpayers, thank you very much, and ECS grant from the state of Connecticut, thank you very much, but state's not enough in our opinion, hence the letter you signed today. In addition to that, we get revenue from all of these other sources. Okay. IDEA, that's the Individual with Disabilities in Education Act. That's largely a grant managed and written by Sarah. Titles 1 through 4, these are things for like professional development, multi-language learner support. Chuck manages these grants and writes them. We're expecting $180,000. Seed is the new supplemental grant that we got from the state this year from the first time, and it was very nice to get that email in September. Right, that wasn't something we had budgeted for, but we needed it for more paras. We are anticipating that that amount is sustained next year too. Is it a 2-year or a 3-year? 2 year.
Here right now.
Yeah, so it's this year and next year.
And there's some limitations to that seed money and how it's being used or how it can be used. Unfortunately.
Yeah, special education.
Yeah, it's
for
a
sure.
special education, correct.
Mental health grant, McKinney-Vento to support homeless students. Big one here, open choice, right? Now, we're budgeting for, we get $10,000 a student if we're above 5%. We're below 5%, we only get 8,000. That's why right now we're keeping our fingers crossed because we're below 5% a little bit. We have 48 open choice students now. I'm hoping for 59. So we are going to open, hopefully, and fill enough seats. Chuck's been out marketing like crazy. I know he was at a open choice recruitment fair this weekend. We're doing some direct mailing. It would be really helpful if we got that K-6 teacher back because then we could open more seats. But right now I'm anticipating getting us back above the 5% to 59 students. We'll talk about that in the spring, but as we declare seats, certainly we have capacity in kindergarten and first grade. Right now we don't have capacity in second grade unless we get that teacher back, plug, right? We certainly have capacity in 5th and 6th grade. And I'm looking to add a couple seats in 9th and 10th grade. So if we open all of those seats and fill half of them or so, we should move from 48 to 59, but the budget assumes we'll have at least 59 open choice students. The student support and social, student and social support is also open choice. It's a supplemental or bonus grant that we get. Excess cost, you see there at the 72%. Let's hope we don't get any bad emails this time next year, right? Let's hope we get the good email like we got this year. And then of course, Medicaid reimbursement at 25,000 for a total of. So all of the positions in the staffing and things that I went over with you, total, if you add them all up, come to 29,170,000. Broken down through these federal and state grant sources as in addition to LEA funding sources, which is LEA share, property tax share, and ECS grant. Stop there. Any questions? A lot to digest. Okay, next slide. This is a new one for you, and thank you, Chuck, for putting this together for me. I love a good pie graph, right? You can see here where all of our funding sources go towards the total budget.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. Next slide. All right, now let's go through the line items specifically, and you have these all laid out in your budget book here. First year, you see a 3.25% increase. This is largely in terms of salaries, but it also includes extracurricular stipends, non-certified staff, the people that make Portland schools great. This 3.25 increase does consider the contractual increases, but again, I mentioned we still have custodians and we still have paras that we're working through. Shouldn't change all that much, I'm hoping. It does consider the reduction of the one teaching position, the one para, and the one classified BCBA position, the reduction of the fall and spring athletic coordinators, and the $20,000 from the district stipends. So we would be looking for a 3.25% increase if you adopt the superintendent's budget for the salaries line items. Any questions there?
Could you just repeat that? You're anticipating of 3.25. 3.25. Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
If you accept my budget as presented tonight, and it goes through the first selectman, board of selectmen, and the voters, we would be asking for 3.25% in the salaries line item. Okay, next slide. Here's the killer, right? This is the punch in the gut moment, right? This is the health insurance, right? You see, I put 13% there. The 0.07 reflects census changes, of course, who's moving in or out or changing plans within. I don't know that we're going to be at 13%. Now, I talked to the insurance broker yesterday. Here's what she said. Charles, I have good news. I said, oh, give me good news. I love it when people start with, I have good news. Anthem came back with 20%. I said, Lynn, you have a very twisted interpretation of good news,
Yeah.
right? I said, 20% is not good news. 20% is very, very, very bad news, right? We're at 13% now. Stephanie, if we had to increase from 13% to 20%, can you do the math real quick and let the board know how much more we either have to add to the budget or find offsetting cuts to absorb?
Yeah.
Look at you.
So to 20?
Yep.
226, 380,
226,000.
380 bucks.
So we would have to either increase the budget by 226,380 or find offsetting cuts or some combination thereof.
It's about 65,000 a percent. So when you add up the percentages to that.
So again, my recommendation, of course, would be we're blowing past the 5% ceiling. I don't want to make any more cuts, I think is what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, not 32, 340 a percent. Because I was looking at 2 years, sorry.
So Lynn said that was good news. I said, no, Lynn, that's very bad news. Now, that said, I've got to let everybody know who's hearing me, particularly bargaining unit presidents who are hearing this. We have a very important meeting with Lynn this Thursday. Lynn is our insurance broker. She's going to brief us on her ongoing conversations with Anthem, going to update us on what we might expect if we went out to bid. And then there's another option called the state partnership plan. There are lots of goods and many, many bads about that plan, but we have to explore all of the options. I know the town is in the same boat, but we really got to get our arms wrapped around this. If the Board of Ed and the town are going to absorb a 20% increase, despite the fact that Lynn thinks that's good news, I think that is very devastating bad news, both for our budget on either offsetting costs or what we're going to have to convince the community to fund us, and of course, the premium cost shares that our folks are going to have to pay, and how impactful it may be when anybody expecting a raise next year sees that dramatically offset by the increase in those premium cost shares. It will be very, very, very difficult.
Savings accounts won't match here. It'll be awful.
There's a lot to work on, but we're working hard on it. We have some very important conversations this week. And trust me, Mike Pelton is aware, Tom Robinson is involved, Stephanie and I are very much involved. I believe you're joining us, Laurel. So we got a lot of work to do. But for right now, what you see is that 13% increase and some changes to the census. And by the way, I put down here, reasons for this are those changes, then of course, unacceptably high premium increases driven by trends and a broken healthcare system in the United States. Just saying, right, folks? If you want to argue with me and think it's a highly functioning, efficient healthcare system, I'm not an expert, but I perceive it as pretty badly broken.
And just to clarify, the 13% is your estimate overall for increase to benefits overall. You've got in the way it's broken out, you've got 16% in for medical insurance.
I'm out with
Well,
that.
yeah, because it's the census. 13% is the actual
The actual,
increase of the dollars, but then when you add the census changes, it makes
Gotcha.
it 16.
and then
The
the total
numbers are so
benefits,
skewed because
13.
13 because of the 20% decrease, but it's literally $5,000. So
Yeah.
that kind of skews
Yeah,
the actual percentage. 33% decrease, but it's only $5,000. So in totality, it's hard to look at the percentages because the dollar amounts are so small. Because I'm increasing pension and FICA and Social Security, $85,000 there. So you have to look at the increase in dollars, I think, more than the percentage. Because of that. I think somebody said in one of the emails, when you're putting the total, like we're looking at a larger number compared to a smaller number, that the percentages just aren't comparable, if that makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
But for the record, this is the driver. This is what's
Mhm.
the gut punch this year.
Look at the actual number, like you said, the 16,
Yeah.
that 7% and the 8%, like within the numbers.
Yeah. I think I was just clarifying that the 16% you have in there for medical insurance, that adjustment is accounting for both,
The
is
census.
accounting for a 13% estimate increase to the cost of the insurance plus the census. Yeah.
Could you break it down by single, two-person family on an individual basis, just to give us some perspective? I don't know that would be
I
helpful,
can't,
but.
not right now,
No,
but I can.
no, I'm
I have
not,
spreadsheets,
no,
but-
no, I'm not asking for right now, but I think it would be helpful, looking at that 13% increase over an individual's responsibility and what we actually are,
I mean, to
required
put in,
to pay.
to put into perspective, an individual plan is around 13,000.
Yeah.
And a family plan is about 35,000.
Yeah.
And then depending on what bargaining unit you are, depends on how much.
How
you-
much the
you
contribution
contribute.
is, yeah.
So it varies across bargaining units,
Stephanie, tell us what the family plan would be if it went up 26.7%.
$51,000.
Yeah.
I
Doesn't
mean,
even
come on,
help
man.
either.
Like, that's say that one more time. If it went up
51,000.
$51,000 for a family plan,
Right.
which
And-
many of our employee bargainers pay almost a quarter of that premium. Everybody should be doing the math in their head and that is devastating.
Well,
So when
these
you
are
think about
health
a-
savings accounts. Are they still health savings accounts?
That includes, yeah, well, that's just in the premium. That
In the
doesn't
premium,
include the
that-
HSA and everything.
Right.
You have to put in, when you think about a person and them being here, you have to take into account their salary plus their benefits. So, you know, you have to, and their FICA and, you know, you may think they're only making $85,000, but when you add it all up, it's quite close to
Yeah.
$150,000 to $200,000 with everything in total.
Yes.
I know, it's a nightmare.
It's hard. I get it. It's very hard. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. Okay, here you see some increases. Now, again, I want to be clear. This 17% increase is driven by a couple of things. One, included in this, the lease for the transition program, right? So if you add this 54,000 to the 932, you start to see where some of that 17% is coming. But again, potentially offset if we can have tuition students. And then this also reflects the changes to minimum wage primarily for our substitutes and the better fill rates that we're enjoying. So it's great that we get substitutes in here, but when we get substitutes here, they have to pay them. So increased fill rates and higher minimum wage has driven some of that 17% increase, but also Stephanie will tell you, some of our contracts, particularly Perfect Temp and others, they've gone up a lot this year. So do you want to comment on that?
Well, so
briefly?
I did a kind of a breakdown of what the
Yeah.
increase, so the overall increase is about 177,000 from last year to this year. And I kind of broke it out by the larger groups.
Sure.
So subs, I'm increasing $23,000, the subline. Facilities con,
23.
Yeah, go slow, Steph, so we can write
Sorry.
it down.
the substitutes, I'm increasing overall, schools, $23,000. All the facilities contracts we have, and I have a list of them if anybody is interested. That's about $12,500 for facilities contracts. Student services is going up 82,938 with 50,000 of that being the transition program. So 82 minus 50 is just her increases in the cost of any outplacements and, you know, the services that they get, PTOT, that's built within that. And then IT is going up so a part of that is also going up 48,200, but we have to remember that we shifted that money from salaries
Yeah.
to purchase services. So that's not an increase, it's just shifting it from the salary. So a part of that 3.25 increase also was the reduction of the salary that got moved over to here.
And that was part of, I think this was before Aaron and Annie joined the board. So just to recap, that was part of a slight reconfiguration that happened with our technology department. That it used to be divided up a little bit differently. We had an extra person on staff and in some reconfiguring that happened, some of that is being contracted now. And we continue to be happy with that, which is why
That's
it's in this
cybersecurity.
budget.
That's AOS.
Cybersecurity
That's
portion
a
of.
Yeah, so
AOS.
we've outsourced our network management
Right.
to a vendor rather than having our own in-house network manager.
So those are about 167,000 and the other 10 are small things like the increase in the shredding services and, you know, all other little types of things. But those are the main increase drivers in that line.
So in the budget book, it's 21%. It's 20 point something percent. So it's a little different. And I'm not sure what the discrepancy is or what the change.
Well, because
is.
there's other accounts within that, 'cause it's
And-
the whole.
Yeah, and it's no secret that I've asked again that we create a separate line item for the substitute contract because they are people. And it would be helpful to know what that people cost is, not to include them in our certified or non-certified line items under salaries, but just what that people cost is because we can't really operate without the subs.
And I could do that because I do that for you in the authorized spending report. I
Yeah.
broke that piece out and I could do that in here.
I think
It
that
was
would
already
be-
printed at the
yeah,
point when,
yeah,
but going
yeah.
forward, I can
Yeah,
make it look like the authorized spending report.
Would it, I think what the request is, would it be possible stuff for Thursday to, in the way that like, you know, for athletics, you break the object out sort of by, or you break the overall category out by object so that we can kind of see further within the object what some of the lines are. Would it be feasible for you to do that for us specifically for purchase services? So we can, I mean, I just scratched down the numbers that you gave us, but so that we can see, you know,
Like
what you just,
by
by
department?
department, what you just described
Yeah.
for us, so we can see substitutes, we can see the facilities contracts a little more clearly, the student services key. That, I think that would be helpful, so we can visualize what purchase services looks like.
that would be- I know, because it's confusing when you say purchase services and you're assuming maintenance contracts, basically. Which may involve people, but we're paying them to do a service as opposed to bringing substitutes in and understand we're not paying their salaries or benefits. But we're still, you know, we are required to have those people in the building, so.
So if you look in each section, it will show like student services,
Yeah.
it does show the 82,
Yeah.
but so you want to see it just in one section
If we can see it
together.
as a block, I think that would be,
Yeah.
I think people would appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for that one, or, I mean, as we move on, if there's others that you want more of a breakout.
Thanks.
Am I good? Okay,
Yep, we're good.
next slide. Okay, here you see a slight decrease in repairs and maintenance. UGG. There's always an UGG moment when we see this. You know, our buildings are in the condition they're in. Stephanie and I did meet with the long range planning for capital. What we badly need to do some significant work on our buildings. We're barely holding them together, right? We are very much on borrowed time. Our schools are reaching a point. So to see this as a negative 0.03, that is the flat funding that we've had to do here.
I don't know why I made it $7 less or whatever I did. I should have just made it the same.
Like,
They get that extra $8 in.
it's a roll of duct tape, right? You know,
But for people that haven't been here, when I first started 8 years ago, that was over $500,000. And you know, when we have to start cutting, you pick certain things and I would always, I mean. It always end up being repairs, maintenance, it would be the benefits line, it would be the pension line, you know, and those are the hardest ones. You know, that you finger cross and hope that you have extra money at the end of the year to offset it.
And we also thought we would be in a different place with a new building, and so we deferred some of that repair and maintenance to hoping that the consolidation plan would cover some of it.
We can.
yes,
And
we
and
did.
it will,
Yeah,
but it's not,
yeah.
you know, spoilers break and roof
Right.
leak.
And you know, we have to go into this with our eyes wide open. If we don't prevail this spring, and we're going into next year without a plan for significant investments and only a $300,000 repair and maintenance budget.
Well, and by the way, when somebody asked, I think Dave asked the question about a two-year budget cycle. Many boards do have a two-year budget. Windsor does a two-year budget every year, and so they know kind of where they're headed. And it's part of a larger strategic plan. But I think it's a good idea, actually.
I do want to say though that, you know, even though the maintenance contracts do seem like they're extremely high, they do help where this comes to play, because our Perfect Temp, for example, before we had service agreements for them where they would come out twice a year or whatever it is to change filters and all that stuff that's included in the price. We were spending so much money. I even said to Bob, I go, we've only opened 2 Perfect Temp POs this year when usually we're at like 6 at this point. So it's helping in the repairs and maintenance. I mean,
No, it
would need, you
does.
know, God forbid another boiler goes or something, but to the day-to-day stuff, the preventative maintenance contracts definitely help with the repairs and maintenance piece of it.
It's like having a warranty on your car.
Right.
Also, I mean, yeah, and maybe we'll talk about this more as we get more into depth, more into detail, but when I was looking through the buildings and grounds budget, it looks like repairs and maintenance is sort of being held flat. And that the decrease really is in the supplies line, it seems like.
cut several places in this place.
Okay.
Yeah, again, with the hopes that we have end of year funding and.
And can pre-purchase some of those.
Because you can't do services pre,
Yep.
you can buy, you can only
Gotcha.
use consumables.
Gotcha. That's good to know. Thank you.
Remember last year you were here, you had the whole thing, rack of paper over here or what?
Well, that becomes a problem too, is there enough
Store.
places for things to be stored? You know, as last year the cut was only $35,000, now we're up to 50, so where do you put the other $15,000 worth of things?
Oh, a lot. All right, let's go to the next one then. There you go. Other services. Okay, you do see a decrease here. Again, we haven't finished the M&J contract yet, so this may change. This is, you know, right now what Stephanie put in as a placeholder. I don't think it will be far off based on what we know about where we are in our negotiations, but they're not done yet. This also does reflect some of the changes that we've made now that we've moved to more minivan in-house. And then this also, of course, projects Sarah and sports services needs for outplacements. Would I like to see this be higher and have a ghost outplacement or two in there as a hedge? I would love it, but it's just, it's not. So that's a negative 0.42 decrease there. Again, there's all kinds of assumptions, projections, and gambles built into that. Okay, next one. And this is another one that's painful. You do see another area where, Meg, I know you point this out every year, right? We do enjoy some discretion over some things that we purchase, but you know, of course, you know, we all know gas prices are down a little bit, which is great. You know, let's hope they can stay that way. But these are our utilities, electricity, and consumables that we have in schools, but there is a slight decrease there. Next slide. Buildings and equipment. Okay. So, again, we're fortunate here. Another good news moment here. There is funding. I'll just point out again, last year, if you remember, we brought back the Chromebooks. So now there is funding here to purchase all of our 5th and 9th grade students in the second year of that Chromebook replacement cycle with a brand new Chromebook that is under 4-year warranty, which is great because this year we did it for the first time. Next year, if we do it, all we need is 2 more years, and then we have 100% of our fleet under the 4-year rolling warranty. So this is sort of the vision that we keep up to date with the Chromebook replacement cycle. And we calculate, by the way, the exact number of current 5th and 9th grade students. Now, we don't know how many 9th grade students are going to go to Charter Magnet or other places, but you know, that could give us a little bit of a buffer there. Otherwise, there are some investments here in some IT needs.
And I'm happy to see that because that cycle, it took us a while to get here. But once we are on that cycle, that the high school, middle school, high school have new Chromebooks and they're not dealing with old ones that need repairs.
Correct. We don't want to get off the cycle. Again,
No,
even
no.
1 year cut to that would be a hole,
Yeah.
right in the middle, and put us back in the place where we were about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're making nice progress, but we gotta stay with it. We gotta stay committed to that.
Well, that shouldn't.
Next slide. And then again, dues and fees, slight increase here because you know Kate has her NES&C accreditation visit on every 10 years. NES&C rolls around. We had our collaborative conference last year and they're coming back next fall. I can't wait to see them. I think we've made some really nice changes based on their feedback to curriculum and how it's accessed and how easily it is to access and who knows where it is, which is kind of a silly thing that we had to deal with, but we've straightened that out. And it will be wonderful if we can have a full-time librarian here at the high school next year so that when we come back, we said we heard you and we figured out how to accomplish that. Otherwise, my hope is that NESC comes here and is as impressed with Portland High School as I am every day. So a great place. And I know Kate and her staff have been working very hard on that. So the increase there is primarily due to that one-time fee that we have to pay to our main accreditor. Okay, next slide. Okay, so tonight, 5 o'clock this evening, Stephanie and I met with the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee. We gave them the whole list of things, but we're in a weird place. Like it doesn't make sense to request major capital things, certainly for Valley View, Gildersleeve or Brownstone, Instead, we're focusing on the secondary school. The first one here is a technology upgrade. What we need to do is replace it, if I can find one. We see the API in here. Where's the Wi-Fi access node? Anybody see it? On the ceiling somewhere. There you go, right there. So these right here, we need to replace these at the secondary school. We put these in. I would say, didn't we just do those? But
Didn't we just do
that was my
this?
second year here, 7 years ago, right? Like
All right.
the time have flown by. So they're out of warranty. They're past their usable life. So we need a plan to replace those. It makes sense to do that because, oh, by the way, let me just start here. The phones, this isn't accurate. We're gonna take out the phones because we're working with the town on that. So I don't know the exact difference, and Bob isn't here and isn't feeling that well tonight. So it's really just the Wi-Fi access points. It makes sense to do that because we have to pay it all up front, but then we get 50% reimbursement through E-rate program. So Stephanie and I have to break out exactly how much it is for the Wi-Fi access points, fund that through capital, and then request 50% of that money back from E-rate. And then we can use that money back
Say-
for additional,
E-rate.
what's that?
E-rate?
Okay. Next time you pay your cable bill,
Yeah.
right? Take a look and there's a little charge on it. It's like a little tax you pay.
Mhm.
And that goes to a federal program called E-rate.
Oh, okay.
And that is available to municipalities for things like technology upgrades, whether it's your town hall, schools, parks and rec, others. So we get our share of that funding through that federal program. We have to only use it for eligible items, one of which is the Wi-Fi, but it also includes your firewalls, your CEN network, and other critical technology infrastructure. So it made sense for us to prioritize that and then get the 50% back and purchase a new server and other tech needs that technology just goes out of date so quick.
And were you,
well-
I'm sure you were upfront with the Long Range
Yes.
Capital Commission about that this is eligible for reimbursement and that there is need for that reimbursed money to then help offset additional costs.
Yep, and they saw the logic of it.
Great.
Like, don't leave money on the table, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to. The lighting system, by the way, that's the Windows 95 system that runs our lights in the building. So the Buildings and Grounds Committee, we met and talked about this. If you remember, right on election day this year, the lights went out. Well, it's a Windows 95 system. I don't know what runs on Windows 95 except
Nothing.
something important.
Like-
So we really need to upgrade that system.
Got the
But
computer that
it-
Bob keeps
it's not-
talking about.
It's not inexpensive. Then, of course, some duct cleaning, we have to do that. Some camera upgrades and some controller replacements for the HVAC system are all things I shared with capital tonight are reflected in that capital budget that you see there and were reviewed with the Buildings and Grounds Committee with Bob, Stephanie and I there. So we had some nice talks about that. And then next slide. I also want to throw sort of seed the clouds for what some recommendations I'll have, some things we didn't include in the budget, but this is how the leadership team and I would certainly prioritize our Gildersleeve grants. We're working hard to identify a 6-8 math curriculum. I'm hearing really good things about one in particular that we're looking at. We need that. Our current 6 through 8 middle school math curriculum is not getting the job done. You had the data presentation recently. You see where it is. We got to do some work on that. I know this has been discussed at the curriculum committee. If we could, and I've spoken with Andy, he said that this would be eligible for a Gildersleeve grant, but that is our top priority. Additionally, Sarah's going to help write a program to outfit our transition program with some nice things. Really cool ideas coming from Sarah about used bookstore and coffee shop and all kinds of neat things we could do. It'd be nice to have some seed money to help out the transition program, should we be able to relocate it. Dylan, I'm not sure, he just walked out. I know he would like a new drone. So he can talk to you all about that, but we would love to see a Gildersleeve grant this year, not included in the budget, but it would be a great thing to add. Our middle school tech lab, I have that starred. We know we've already been approved for that. That will be year 2 of that funding. If you want to see this tech lab, it's awesome in the music department. And the last one is our TV studio. Is that one? Other enrichment-based grant.
Was
Yeah,
that, you were
these are just
saying,
other like the 2,000 or smaller type grants for
That come up.
field
well,
trips.
you were
and
saying
things.
stuff that was on the cut list could potentially be,
Would potentially, especially some of those field trips that were
Yeah.
in the high school and some others, those could also be, but the big ticket ones are kind of above the smaller teacher-based ones we would like to see too.
Can I ask a quick question about this? So I believe sometimes I get a little confused going through the building by building budgets about what, what was an initial request but then got cut or what was actually included in the final budget that we're seeing. But I believe that funding has been included at the high school for a new Spanish curriculum. And my memory is that last year that was a Gildersleeve grant proposal that we deferred on because you weren't quite ready to move on it. And so my question is, is that something that we would add back to this list of priority grant proposals, or is Gildersleeve indicated that they don't want multiple curriculum proposals in one year? Is there a reason why that's not on this list and why that's just in here?
Chuck, do you want to take that one?
So.
Just use the microphone.
Of course.
Yeah.
High school.
So the Spanish textbook request from when they looked at that last year was not something that they were, we held it back because it didn't look like that was something that they were looking that they wanted to go forward with as well in combination. Whereas they've given us different indicators for what we're looking at with math, similar to what we did with Bridges years ago for the elementary level, with how large a scale shift this is from a full programming standpoint. The world language curriculum is kind of very similar to what they're doing. It's not the big change that normally the grant proposal would be looking for in terms of that. So that's why we have it in the budget here, to make sure that we can, I know at a curriculum subcommittee earlier this year that was asked about specifically the Spanish curriculum, to make sure that we could work towards funding it, which is why we made sure to include it in the budget here.
Gotcha.
Is that, so the world language textbooks are on the high school's cut?
So
That's a different thing.
we had to do movement of during one of the phases of when things were cut, that was cut, and then I recaptured that and added it into the curriculum area because that was something that was made as a priority. So it's under a curriculum textbook line item that I think there's about I think 17,000 that I put in to make up for the need to do the full Spanish 1 through Spanish 4 world language textbook adoption. Since
That was the textbook and online.
it's the
platform
textbook
that
and online
supported it.
platform. Mhm.
Gotcha. Thank you for
Yep,
clarifying that.
absolutely.
Yeah, because remember, Gildersleeve grant, it's new initiatives, it's not to maintain what we currently have. And
Yeah.
Because the math curriculum is new and
Yeah.
different, that's why they're putting it through there, when this is just
Okay.
continuing what we have, they just need an upgrade.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think our next slide is Q&A. Thank you for your patience. I know that was a lot. You must be exhausted.
You are exhausted.
No, this is great. Thank you so much for all of that background, Charles, and for for walking it through that way. So I think, at this point, board members, I know that, likely everyone has sort of some individual questions to ask. Does it make sense to kind of begin at the beginning and work our way through? How would you all, or do you want to just jump in with questions and we can jump around? Maybe it makes sense to kind of go school by school, department by department? Would that make sense to folks? Sure.
Sure. Well, what the principals are here. Why don't I introduce the principals, and then we'll start right with Valley Views. Brian, you want to come on up and we may have some questions about what either what was cut or what is included for Valley View next year. And if you haven't met, this is Ryan Wallstrom. He's the Valley View principal.
Yes, that's at the end of the agenda. Oh, thanks, Sarah.
Hi,
Hi, Ryan.
good evening.
Are there any, did you want to
Yeah.
say anything? Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. It's the Valley View budget is very similar to what it was last year. There are no significant changes or requests in there that are largely different. They're, under language arts, one of the things that we're trying to do, as you all know, we have implemented the Houghton Mifflin reading program over the last 2 years is our second year of implementation. And we are working to build our decodable libraries. So we've been purchasing 1 or 2 of those each year. So that is a significant part of it. But Otherwise, it's very similar. It's pretty straightforward.
Is that under, would that be under general supplies?
It's-
The increase that we're seeing under.
I think that there's all, the way that I think each of the principals did it, there's only one, it's either general supplies or textbooks. I can't remember, but there's only one line under language arts and it's included in that.
And I think you mentioned this in your report that, so I was expecting workbooks to like jump up because I know seems to be an important piece of the
Yes.
curriculum now, but
Yeah, yeah,
there was,
Yeah.
there's a surplus. And
So there's
there's less.
so there's a couple pieces there. One is there is a surplus actually from the last couple of years that so we'll use those. And I think the K1 level or levels are different than second, third, and fourth grade in that there are more workbooks. In a lot of cases well, for kindergarten, a lot of our programs don't even have them. Or we've decided over time not to use them to usually, well, actually both of our resources are Bridges in Mathematics program and the Houghton Mifflin program have the option of purchasing the workbooks, but all of those workbook pages are also available to be printed through the online component that we have. And in some cases, the teachers don't use enough of them to warrant purchasing the entire workbook. And that was something that we had to learn recently with Houghton Mifflin. So that's why that is. So as of right now, kindergarten, the math program does not, we don't purchase the consumable workbooks for reading or for math. And in first grade, we purchase them for mathematics, but not for the reading program.
I have a question because
Yeah.
I know we have play-based learning,
Yeah,
resources for that.
yeah.
Are we finding that we're going out and we're looking for equipment or games or whatever? And I noticed the athletics, the gym was, physical ed was cut. Is there?
Yes, yeah. So physical education was cut. It wasn't, I think it was $100 cut. It wasn't significant. But we have a lot of equipment. We've that I think it's $800. At one point it was $1,000 has been in there for years. And at this point our physical education teacher just has what he needs. So I cut that a little bit, but basically it's to replace the basketball that gets a hole in it, or the bowling pins that have one too many dents, like that kind of thing. So not a huge need there.
And what about
That's
the
what.
classroom place for
Yeah, so
play-based?
play-based learning, in a lot of cases, we either had the materials already, especially in kindergarten, or teachers are finding a lot of them for free. For example, our kindergarten classes, recently found like farm sets and farm animals, but a lot of people, their kids grow out of those types of things and then they donate them to the school.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Good to hear. This might be more of a Stephanie question, but in looking at the purchase services line, which we talked about earlier, yeah, in Valley View, that number is up. I mean, and these are all like relatively small amounts, but in Valley View, it's up. In Gildersleeve, it's down. In Biz, I think it was up again. I'm just curious what contracts are in there that are determining whether those needs are up or down at the schools?
I need to look at my spreadsheet here just because I have to visualize it.
Isn't that the copy machine? For the most part?
Copy machines in 44003.
Oh, okay.
Purchase, so it's the info shred is usually
Oops.
within the location, which is the shredding service. But let me just check and see.
And Valley View needs more shredding than Gildersleeve.
So,
Hold on.
yeah.
The kids use more paper.
I was gonna say, we have more PBTs.
Drive, they're shredding out.
Yes, it's really confidential things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
It's all.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
drive
stuff
their
off the top of
paper
my
to
head, but not.
Yeah, no, take your time. That's okay. And really, it's just my own curiosity and trying to understand why one would be up by 10% and another down by 12%.
And one piece of that might be that, I don't know, I can't really speak for the other two elementary principals, but it's finding that balance between the 100 line and and the materials that specific classroom teachers need. For example, paint and construction paper and those kind of things for kindergarten. And the 241 administrator line also has materials purchased there. And I always just, that's a balancing act, but in some cases, they're very similar.
Gotcha.
It's the substitutes. It's the subline.
It is
So
the
that's the
subline.
subline.
And that would be really
Okay.
helpful to know.
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
difference is between the
So-
copier maintenance and the
Yeah.
library.
Right.
But I thought substitutes weren't included in this budget. It says less substitutes at the
Right,
bottom.
so
I
that-
thought
so
those were
that-
pulled out.
Well, it's in the total up top, so if you see like, so
Right.
Valley View, their total is 104,000, so I back out the 75,000 for the subs, that's where I get 29,456. I back out the copier, so it's still in the top line, but when I subtract it out in these, that's what his actual budget is for his things.
The
It's
actual budget is the
19,509.
19,509.
But the big
Aha.
budget is 104,456, which does include the substitutes. So that's 7,000 increase. That's the subline.
And
Okay,
actually the
so-
19,000 is less the copier.
And then the copier is in 44003. But I put it in there because it is part of the building. We don't do salaries in there, but because those still are part of the building, I do include it. So in 44003, the 9947, that's all the copier,
And that's just the
lease.
maintenance on it, correct?
That's the lease.
Oh, that's the lease.
Yep. We should be within, if there's any maintenance on it, it's all included in that payment.
Okay.
So if it's
Okay.
up and down, I adjust it based on the needs that I see. And again, it could be, $7,000 more Valley View this year, but it could be 7,000 less next year. So I
Right.
kind of only base it on what happens this
On
year.
what you
Say
see.
support middle school barely gets any subs. So I try to adjust it because I'm not gonna keep giving him this much money when
When it's not being
unfortunately you
used.
don't use it.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, you don't use it. I know, I'm sorry. So I try to adjust it to make it
Okay.
equal. And that's why where my subline only went up 23,000 because I adjust
From building to
usage
building.
From building to building.
fill rates, they're younger.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
sense.
Listen,
Substitute.
I have a middle schooler and I get it.
Yeah,
So that's what those numbers are.
yeah.
That's why.
Okay, that really does help. Thank you, Steph.
So I guess maybe I never explained that, but the total, that like I said, that 104 at the bottom is everything other than salaries.
Yeah.
And then I break out the substitutes and then I break out the copier and the 19,509 was the actual things that they request.
Okay. Gotcha.
So and they should be each one is the same.
Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Good
for-
question.
Yeah, Thank you for helping me understand it. Other questions for Ryan about Valley View? Thank you, Ryan.
Great, thank you. Tracy?
Thank you.
I did have one quick question. Ryan, don't go away. Just very quickly, how many pre-K kids are going to kindergarten that you would guess this year? And that was just the number that I looked at the attendance, not the attendance, but the population data from last month's.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I would say probably about 20. I don't know if you,
Okay,
that's, yeah, yeah. I
okay.
mean, if I just looked at, for the most part, our 4-year-olds are in our 2 afternoon classes and they're at about 10 students right now. But, with preschool, that changes on a monthly basis based on, yeah.
That would be included in the 85 that we're projecting.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks. Bunch of-
Good evening. I don't have any big changes. So the only thing that is really a big difference will be that next year we only have 4 fourth grade sections this year and we'll go up to 5 just because of enrollment. And maybe our second grade will go up to 6. So we would have between 15 and 16 classes next year. So therefore, Charles did, as he mentioned, talk to Joe and Mike and I about how we could kind of use some of the Brownstone staff. So Joe, we kind of pillaged from him a little bit, but we're trying to look at our schedules for next year. So times where maybe his reading and math specialist could come up just for like a block when our second grade is doing their win time where they could get a little extra support and we could have more hands on deck, things like that. We're just trying to share staff a little bit more so that our kids are benefiting. But besides that, not really too much change in my budget, as Charles said. I don't know if you have any
No, that-
questions.
Presents a lot of scheduling challenges for you all administratively, but I have to say, I think it's such a wonderful idea, able to make it work.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, we were,
Great lineup.
the idea of it at first, you're right. We were trying to figure out how to make it work, especially with a middle school schedule, which is on a different time schedule than we are.
Right.
But we were all willing to be flexible because it is the right thing for the kids to try to get that, the people that they need at the right time. So we're still working, but that's the goal.
Yeah. What questions do we have for Tracy about about the Gildersleeve budget?
No?
I had a quick question about,
Sure.
this was sort of like a one line that stood out to me in your budget narrative. When
Mhm.
you referenced that one of your kind of dreams for Gildersleeve would be to bring on a part-time language teacher.
Mhm.
And that if you were able to do that, the mental health team would be freed up from teaching specialist classes. And so my question really was around like envisioning that for the future at some
Yeah.
point, maybe if that
Mhm.
was feasible. How would SEL happen then? Would it not be one of the regular specials? Would you imagine it kind of incorporated back into classroom time?
Yes, that's
would you
exactly.
recommend?
I guess the program, I was talking to Sam Starr, a social worker, about that. And the way the program that we use is really designed is really supposed to be within the classroom. I think they envision that as more meaningful for the kids to really see it kind of in real time. We even talked about doing like a weekly, having like a dedicated time during the week where the teachers would do that type of programming, but not for it to be a weekly special. But yes, obviously still wanting to keep the SEL because we do think that's important, but just infusing it into the daily classroom schedule.
Let me see, what's the program that you use?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask that because I'm completely, go, tell me. Oh,
Oh, it's shifting, okay.
that's why I didn't know what it was. Mhm.
Right, shifting and then. Were you using First Step or whatever the?
Yeah, that was for a while. That was second.
And that's not great. That's not
Oh,
great.
that's the one that's the M one was the one I was thinking of. What is it? Zoom Sam. Okay.
Yeah, and we did Second Step for Kids Corner. It was awful. It was so scripted.
Yeah.
Scripted, and
Right.
it was just like you read the script and it was awful.
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, they infuse, I think they all do. Our Carly, Barrett and Sam Starr use it, but also infuse their own things to it. So they don't just, yeah,
I'm sure what they are doing is wonderful.
yes.
Can I ask you, Tracy, also about workbooks and just needs as we've been onboarding the new reading curriculum and what the needs are this year? Is that line down just because we had excess last year, or is it down because you think moving forward we're going to need less workbooks in the future?
Yeah, we are still our second and third grade do use all the workbooks. I know Ryan, I think with the little ones felt like they just weren't using them as much, but our teachers really are using them. We had some funds left over.
You had extra funds for the right to grants we repurposed.
Yeah, so we were
Right.
able to get
Okay.
that ahead of time. So,
Okay.
but everyone is continuing with the workbooks.
So it's down a little bit this year because we have what we need, but we anticipate that going back.
That's gonna
up
go back
next
up.
year to make sure we have what we need every year.
Yes. Mhm.
That's what I wanted to get at.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, folks, for Tracy?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
And this is Joe, and then.
Everyone, this is my first time doing a budget. It was super fun.
Yeah. Super
Uh,
fun.
Yeah, it was the best.
It was-
No, but you'll notice our budget is pretty similar to what it was last year. One thing to draw your attention to is our math workbooks. So, grade 6 will be, like we said, moving to a new program next year. So, the Gildersleeve grant will be paying for the 6th grade workbooks. So right now we just have, just a place for the 5th grade workbooks, which we will be shifting back to Bridges, which is K4 right now. So again, no big shifts, other than that, and everybody's stealing the people from my building. No, I'm kidding. It's gonna make a lot of sense, and we'll do some problem solving, but I think it's gonna be a good thing, and kind of a continuity from school to skill too. Yeah,
Tracy said pillage. I like pillaging. That.
yeah, that's, yeah. Well, she has more kids than everybody.
Share. Let's try the word share.
Yeah. Creatively scheduled, use the resources where most effective. Yes, well said, Chuck.
And I think that Tracy sort of touched on this a little bit, but scheduling challenges in terms of sharing library media specialists with the middle school versus sharing specialists with Gildersleeve or Valley View, like how you're anticipating that's going to be manageable and.
Yeah, that's actually, I've been talking with Chuck about this, as this is a process we want to start really working on it now and mapping that out and aligning the schedules and kind of just starting building it out. So that's something we're literally, it's on our to-do list to start working through that process. So I do think we will definitely be able to do it. It's going to take some time.
Questions for Joe? No.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Joe.
Hi, everyone.
No.
I'm gonna keep this kind of boring trend going. Not a lot of changes in our budget. Really the main things that we were kind of focusing on is the fact that a year from now, it's gonna look very different in hopes that we will be very much in the mode of getting ready for sixth grade to come up. So kudos to our teachers, they were really organized and really flexible when it came to making it clear what was level 1 needs versus level 2 and 3 wants. So.
Any questions for Mike about the middle school budget? My only question really was that you mentioned that there was some furniture requests to make classroom spaces feel more usable and more friendly or different configurations.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if you think that might be an item that there may be grant funds somewhere that we could go after to support that kind of a request.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a Gildersleeve grantable
Right.
thing, and I'm not sure if it would be a Ryan Fund thing. I think it would be, love to have it if there's end of year funding.
Okay.
You just know me, end of your.
I know.
Yeah,
Well, thank goodness for the 72%. I'm hoping for the 10,000 for open
Yeah, but
choice.
we don't
but,
wanna,
you know.
don't wanna get ahead of ourselves.
You're
with
right.
that,
It's,
though.
and it is only January, right? So,
Yeah.
But yes, I'm writing a lot of checks there.
Well, I think it's, it is something to.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mike?
Have you thought of pillaging for
We're not sure.
Kate does have some chairs in her conference room that we have had our eyes on for quite a while.
They're
Yeah.
using them.
Yeah, so exactly. So we're the plan. We're just, I don't want to talk about it in front of them.
I don't have questions for Mike, but
Alright.
thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
I think we're good. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, and Jeff, you guys want to come up and, if you had any questions specifically about middle school athletics or, primarily the bulk was high school,
Do
but
you have
this
a
is
list
John.
of stipend and things that we're going to talk about on Thursday or affecting something like some ski clubs and everything?
Miss it up.
Spring.
Spring. We do that in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, we do an MOU in the spring.
Right.
I'm definitely not ready to,
Okay.
that's very complicated. That's when we start arguing about, in some cases, $80 here or $90 there.
Yeah.
I can't go, I can't do it right now. I just,
No,
I don't have the bandwidth.
No, I don't want you to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening,
Hi.
Kate.
Good evening.
Watch those chairs, we might be sneaking. around.
I can't fill the subs.
Did you want to say anything about your budget?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my budget narrative, you might notice, is much markedly shorter than it has been in years past,
Sure.
as a result of those first rounds of cuts. But some thinking to share with you on how we crafted that budget, was really building on the vision of graduate and looking at providing real life experiences for kids and dual enrollment opportunities, not just with college credit, but with industry credentials. So those are kind of the two pathways where you'll see a lot of the things that I removed, were intentionally put in to make, to build our capacity in those two areas. The other piece that I removed, was looking at, a department request of 0.2 social studies. And that was to continue to grow the course offerings in that department. Certainly not something that would help us not function, but it is a very important area of our curriculum that we do want to grow. And the athletic coordinator position that was removed in one of the rounds of cuts is a critical piece to our leadership team, as it allows Mr. Marino to function 50% of the time as a dean of students, which has the connections that we're making with kids, the reductions in all kinds of metrics, and my ability and Mike's ability to then be instructional leaders far more than chasing kids down for tardies. So that's something that we're very protective of. What you will see as an increase is the NEASC fee. Typically, we pay about $4,800 a year to belong to NEASC. In the year that you are accredited, they double it. So your dues are more. The other piece in the NEASC visit, they'll be coming in October of 2026, is when the committee comes, we have to house them. We have to feed them. We have to buy them little presents. That's the other piece of that $11,000 NEASC is the lodging for the committee for 3 nights for the visit and the food.
And where is that showing up in here? So it sounds like part of that is dues and fees, and then are there
Yes,
other
so
line items? where-
it is showing up in a couple of different places,
Yeah.
I believe, unless Stephanie moved it. I have a section in 241 that is dues and fees.
Yes,
And it-
so she's got about, so 241 is a department, these are objects, so it's.
Oh.
Well, dues and fees is where the NEASC is, the
Yeah.
4557 increase,
Mhm.
and then I think your 241 would be in supplies. Do you remember which account you put it in?
I have 241, the rooms, the hotel room, the meals, and the travel expenses under professional development in
Okay.
241, 330.
Okay, so that's the 6,340 increase.
Yep.
I was curious.
And then I have the dues and fees are crazy at the high school. Because we belong to CIAC for $5,200 a year, Shoreline Association for $3,000 a year, NEASC will be $8,000 for next year, and College Board is $400. So those are just right out of the gate membership fees that there's really no way around.
What about things like the Math League or Model UN, and are there fees for that as well?
So
Okay.
depending on the extracurricular activity there, we typically fold those into the budget of that activity, and the teams or the clubs will fundraise for entry. You will notice I did take out the transportation for Math League, which is problematic because Math League's only about 5-6 kids usually, but they travel to 6 or 7 meets. It's the only extracurricular that I also fund from the budget. The other extracurriculars like DECA and Student Senate are self-sustaining because they do their fundraising. But when you can't really ask 5 kids in Math League to raise $8,000 for buses. It's not a real reasonable piece, which is a little high. I would say it's probably closer to 4, but that did
Will
come
parents
at
pick up
a cut.
Will parents pick up that slack if they have to transport? Or can we use one of Sarah's vans? too?
Well, we have used that in the past. We have used the van in the past to transport. It is one of our activities with a lower census of student participation. So when we have that conversation about reducing stipends, that's something we'll have to think about. I hesitate to me, when you're asking parents to transport, you're creating an inequity.
I know,
And that's troublesome to me.
I agree. To be continued.
I'm just curious about general supplies. It's 4 times the middle school. What do you use that the middle school doesn't use?
It's an awesome question. More of everything, because we're 4 grades instead of 2.
Yeah, we pick double.
Double of everything.
12,000 to 46.
Um,
45,000.
I do a lot of classroom supplies through through the general supplies. I do my furniture replacement when I can through my admin line. I cover postage, I think, for both buildings. Do you have a postage line? You do? Okay. Yeah, I'd have to do a crosswalk.
I'm just curious, because it just seems high.
We typically come in under, but it is, it is all kinds of things that we can take for, to use, for different things that classroom teachers need, that experiential piece, and we fund a lot out of that. And that way teachers in their department budgets have fewer funds. And I don't know how that compares to how they do it at the middle school. But like the math department or the business department has $300 worth of supplies for the year. Because most of the classroom supplies come out of my line. So it may just be which number it's under. I don't know.
Yes, I'd be interested to see more details on that at some point.
Get that by Thursday, take a look.
We can crosswalk it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, if there's furniture, maybe we hold off on buying something for a year or whatever.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Last year, I bought the chairs in the conference room with leftover money in the supply line that you are sitting on right now. Because the ones in the conference room, people were falling off of them. They were breaking, and I was getting embarrassed to have people from outside our building come into. So I don't know if that's how razor thin the other buildings are, but because there's so many unanticipated expenses that are in that sort of general supply needed things that I can get for teachers and classrooms, that's where I would use that money.
Two things stick out to me is tech ed and food and consumer sciences, just because of the program that Grace does and.
And we've cut both those lines. We cut,
But that's where a lot of this between like what Mike budgets for, and I don't know, the high school offers more than the middle school as
Yeah.
far as those
There's
go.
more complex curricular course offerings in high school, so it's smaller, even with not as many students, because it's a diverse, it's a comprehensive high school, with comprehensive course offerings. Have to have those classes, and run all those classes.
Yep.
Even though this class is only a side classes of 12, you still need to have the supplies for a full CTE program.
Good point.
Do we have a fractional social studies department, or I know there was the request for the 0.2, so do we not have a full?
we don't, we have 3.5 social studies
Okay.
currently. And our 0.5 instructor has indicated his willingness to increase his FTE if we're able to increase our programming. One of the key elements of keeping that 0.5, and that has been a conversation in past budget cycles, is the full year course offering of Black and Latino studies, which is super, super important to our curriculum and the state requirement.
And it's also more electives for the graduation requirement, so getting, rolling back some of the requirements and then adding in more electives also causes more resources and supplies to be required. Yeah. And sometimes it's copying articles and journals and things of that nature rather than buying a textbook.
Yeah, we haven't bought textbooks
I
in
was gonna say.
ages.
Yeah.
So let me bump in here, just for the good of the order, it's 8:49.
Yeah.
We would still have Chuck, Sarah, me and Stephanie about central office and contracts, and then Bob, of course, and Bob isn't here.
We can say Bob for Thursday.
Right, we also have, I know, a group of people that, for our audience of citizens, this might be a nice time to break and then come back Thursday with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the same.
Small children.
Okay, then maybe we'll do them and then
Yep.
break for Bob, me, Stephanie, and that would still give us time for audience of citizens.
Sure. I think that.
I do think before I hand over the
Yeah.
microphone, I'd like Jeff just to speak to the athletic trainer, which I think is a key piece of his reductions and needs around athletics.
Yeah, budget season was awesome. First time for me, Joe. So ready for any, yeah. So speaking about the athletic trainers, looking at what we go through Adriana International Day, go through Athletic Training Solutions, and they provide us a trainer at all of our home games. So the whole fall season, we had a trainer at every single soccer game, we had a trainer at every single volleyball game. Looking projecting forward through the winter, we do our, actually, for this year, we actually are able to actually have a trainer there for each of the basketball games. However, looking to the spring, we are able to actually go through Athletic Training Solutions in the budget to actually get a trainer for even the baseball or the outdoor track meets. That was a proposal I put forward in the first round that I actually was hoping to use Athletic Training Solutions to actually provide athletic trainers for every single home game for fall, winter, and spring. And basically what I did was I looked at and I talked with his name's Ed Kravitz. I spoke with him about his dues and fees and how it looks and the outlook projected like into the future. And also looking at what he charges now. And then, excuse me, Tracy gave me a peppermint mint and like lodged me. That was like 32 degrees.
Take the chairs.
Yeah, so yeah, don't worry. Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I looked at what he's charging now for each of the home games and then projected out. It roughly came to about a part-time athletic trainer salary, and looking at obviously market value of athletic trainers now in the state of Connecticut's roughly $60,000 a year. So looking at us having Ed Kravitz provide trainers only for the games came to about $33,000 that I did in the original proposal. But I was obviously asked to do a reduction and do some cuts, and that was one of the ones, unfortunately, I had to reduce back down to what we have now.
Well, I'm sorry, I have a clarifying question, and pardon my ignorance. On this, it's talking about athletic coordinator. You're saying trainer. Are we talking about the same thing? But that's
Different.
different.
No, two
Okay,
different
thank
things.
you. I was like,
Two
what am I
different
talking
things,
about?
yes.
Okay, sorry, keep
Yeah.
going. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So that was that was one of the big things that we
Okay.
did reduce, is that now it would kind of revert back to what we have this year. We are unable to utilize Athletic Training Solutions to provide a trainer for the outdoor like tennis matches or for outdoor track meets or baseball games.
So when you have a need that arises that a trainer typically would respond to, how have you been managing that?
So when in speaking to obviously past practice and speaking with our athletic coordinator, Jenny Bell, who's been around for, in the district for a while, we've utilized the EMTs in town. We utilized, just kind of reaching out, Dave Obashinsky, our head nurse, has provided, being site director, he can be on site if anything happens. And he's reached out through his connections to have, again, off-duty EMTs come and provide service. Unfortunately, there is a difference between an off-duty EMT coming to provide service at an athletic event. Injuries are a little bit more different. The EMTs aren't really trained to treat like injuries in, for example, like ankles or something like that, where it soon needs to get, wrapped up right away. Obviously, it's just EMTs are more trained for trauma, whereas athletic trainers are more trained for athletic focused injuries.
And if the nurse is filling in, is that they're getting paid? So that's
Correct, yeah.
So what is in the budget currently reflects current usage over this year.
Yeah, so
You haven't made cuts to what we currently have. You just
No,
weren't
yeah,
weren't
not-
able to include.
Nothing to what we currently have, whatever, what we currently have, I think it was $21,750 is actually, I kept that for
Okay,
the proposed budget. Now, it should carry us projecting out, looking at whatever increases we do possibly see. He was, possibly a 2.9% increase. That would still carry us from next fall to about mid to late winter, and then obviously from there on.
yeah. Okay. Thanks for explaining that. Can I ask you a question about how we are budgeting for transportation, like athletic transportation needs? Because Charles made a couple of references over the last few weeks about whether, about whether we're budgeting for every team to make it to the playoffs, in every sport, or whether we are looking at past usage and making a budget from there. I guess could you talk us through how you develop or make a guess about what our transportation needs will be?
So looking at obviously what we do for transportation, I mean, it is wise to kind of project, okay, there's a possibility that we could obviously go all the way to the state finals or state championship in each of the sports. So it's good to prepare for that. It's better to kind of plan for us to go rather than not, and then have to kind of look for money. That's what I've typically thought would be a better way to go about it. Looking at what as far as budgeting for transportation next year, what I did do is I did, reach out to the coaches as far as finding our non-league games, saying that, try and find some that are closer to Portland rather than obviously finding ones that are in Litchfield County or in Fairfield County. So that was obviously a way to kind of budget and go forward, and all the coaches, were on agreement. They would look to stay a little closer than home, because they don't want to, obviously, we don't want to have an hour and a half bus ride that way. As far as looking at what we have in currently right now, we obviously didn't go to the state championship and all the other in the sports for the fall. So I just looked at how the increase would look in the future, and then obviously speaking with M&J, I think they came in at, it was the 14%, I think. Was it?
We're not done yet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so that was what we had discussed, but that was something
Projecting.
projected, yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, past practice would be to budget for going to the state championship for each sport, because it would be.
For every sport in every season. But we're not every year coming in way under on transportation, though. I mean, if that's how we were budgeting, every year we'd be way under on transportation, right? So, but typically we're coming in around where we budgeted.
So I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah,
so
thank you.
looking at the fall season, so soccer budgeted 7,500, we spent 7,596.41. Football, swimming combined budgeted 4,500, we spent 7,152.32, so that's way over.
Okay.
Cross country, we budgeted 3,500, we spent 5,476. Volleyball, we budgeted 2,500, we spent 3,616. But remember, when we were doing this budget, when Frank had to cut, everywhere he cut was in transportation.
Right.
So he may have
Okay.
been,
Maybe
he
this
would
year
have
wasn't
been
the
there.
the best year to be
Right,
looking at.
so technically transportation and athletics right now is over budget, but knowing from last year, that's where Frank cut off stuff.
Okay.
So, and now I don't know, I have to go back and look. I don't know, I don't remember if he went off of this year's budget or last year's budget, off of the original budget.
I looked at what was proposed originally from last year's and look,
So the original proposed versus approved? I can.
correct. I went off of what was proposed last year from this, but so I did propose an increase in the budget for transportation.
That could be why his looks higher, because he reverted
That's what I'm
back to
trying to
what
figure out.
it originally
Yeah.
was.
Okay.
I believe this year's adopted was around 53,000. The proposed was around 69 to 72.
So that's
It
what
was,
we cut last.
and so that's
Yeah,
why
that's where he cut straight across.
that's why I
So
proposed
that's-
higher.
Totally answering my question. I was curious why there was such a big jump in transportation. I mean, I know we are in the middle of negotiations, but it sounds like the bigger issue is that you're trying to go back to how it was previously funded for some cuts last year to make
Correct.
sure that we cover our bases.
Yeah, that's what when I'm in my.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Laura, I'm sorry, where are you seeing, I might be on the wrong page, where are you?
Oh,
seeing-
there's an athletic, there's
Oh.
detail under other student services.
Thank you.
Were there other questions? Either about athletics or about the high school? No. Thank you both very much. All right.
What, you want to talk or Sarah? Let's hear Sarah. Go, Sarah. Yeah.
Let's do
There
Sarah.
you go.
He's gotta go.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Sarah.
So I can speak generally to the cuts that were made, or I can answer specific questions. If you have a preference for either option, I have some, information prepared about the cuts overall. Or if you want to go into specific items, I'm happy to start there as well.
I have a question that's a little bit different from what you were just talking about. Have you had introductory conversations with other districts to get a sense of whether we might anticipate being a recipient of outplacement of students for transition services and programs
Yeah.
in next school year?
Yes, so I haven't formally marketed because our space is still under construction and we haven't entered into a lease agreement. I'm confident that there are districts and folks who are interested. I've also been approached over the past year by districts looking to tuition into our bridge programs and our RISE programs in districts. So I think, my message tonight would be that we're making ourselves marketable in the field of special education. And to continue doing that, we need to keep our staffing, our services at a high level. So yes, I think to answer your question, I wouldn't promise, but I have some districts that contract out a lot of their services or typically use outplacement providers because they don't have something in-house. And there's some interest there. I haven't marketed it openly just because our space is not, fully secured yet. And I wouldn't want to be disingenuous. Yeah.
Thanks.
So Laura, would you prefer if I just, gave a general statement or ask? Okay.
Go ahead, Dave, jump in.
I tried to ask you this earlier, but it was just to understand. The magnet school went up $68,000. You said that was one student. So
Yep.
we're actually paying $68,000 to send one kid to one school.
Yep. So if any Portland resident decides to have their child attend a magnet school, we incur the special education costs of that child. So they have their school choice options to be able to send their child anywhere. That's not a student that we are in a position to quote unquote bring back like an outplacement because it's choice based. So if a student is at a magnet school and they require a one-to-one pair, a speech therapy, occupational therapy, BCBA, things like that, we fund the costs of that as the LEA. As the district the child comes from. So we really have no control over that. And when we budget so very tightly, as we've seen with transportation, one student can tip the scales significantly. So we did have a child move in. It wasn't a child that we were educating and they weren't happy and they went to a magnet. They moved into district, already placed at a magnet. So that is a cost that we really can't avoid.
Dave, it's very similar to how we bill Hartford for the same thing. So when when we bill Hartford, so when the Hartford kids come here, if they have IEPs, 504 services, we bill just like how Craig and Hartford bills us. So that's the piece of that.
So we're
You're
getting.
talking about open
reimbursed.
choice.
Missed that part.
So not for that
Oh.
student, because
For other
it's a
ones.
Portland student going there, but any Hartford students that come
Oh.
here that have the same services that that student may have in Hartford, we bill for that. So it's the
And
same thing.
mention that that 68,000 would be under the excess cost threshold, which is 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure. There's 168, then we would be at that 72% reimbursement. But at 68, all on us.
But if that helps explain it better. With
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing how we bill.
Yeah.
Same thing as they bill, or we bill them, they bill us.
And then I know I challenged you a little
Said
bit on
Hartford, you're
the
talking open
outplacement
choice.
transportation.
Yep.
And to spend
This is so stupid.
almost $600,000 on 20 kids. I know they're specialized and everything like that. Well, there's gotta be something we can do to, I know you did we did the vans and we probably brought it from, I think it used to be 900,000. Now we're at 600 or 700,000. It'd be nice if we could take it that next step down.
Right. Yeah. And I think, as I said, we were emailing back and forth as a board. It is entirely dependent on where students are placed in their start time. So for example, if I have a child in Hebron, a child in Waterford, and a child in Washington, all starting at 8 a.m., there's no way I can bus those students on a single bus. So it's really dependent on where kiddos are placed. And we've been very fortunate that those vans are operating. But I did say, I think last meeting, I think we're at capacity with what we can do outplacement savings wise with transportation. And I believe you also had the question of kind of, do we take geography into account when we're placing students? And the short answer would be, in an ideal world, yes, but the reality of that outplacement landscape is we're not able to. So just so you all are aware, so for example, if a child requires outplacement service, keep in mind, this is typically our highest support need student. And as a student, we are saying we can no longer serve you in district because your needs are so high and so specialized. So there are only a certain number of state approved facilities and schools that do that work. They often have long wait lists. They're also geographically spread out over the state. So when I have a child that I'm saying I need to seek out placement, off the top at the high end, I have about 5 schools that I'm going to put feelers out. At the low end, I may only have 1 or 2 that are a fit for that child within an hour radius of Portland. Typically the school will come back and I'll have some that will say, no, thank you. The student is not a good fit for us. Some the parent will say, no, I'm not interested in this placement. Sometimes they will have a wait list years long. So my choices of where to place a child often go from 5 at the high end to 1 or 2 quite quickly. Then the family will tour, the school will also meet the child and the family, and they have to make a mutual acceptance of each other. The family's interested in this school. The school is interested and the child feels they can do the work with the child. That often leads me with 1 to 2 options. So in a perfect world, if those 2 options were entirely equal in every other respect, would we go for one that is maybe where another child is placed or geographically close? Yes. I think the number of times we're able to make that kind of calculation are 0 in my time here. And I was involved with outplacement a lot when Dawn was the director. And I could say that's almost never happened where we've been able to say, wow, one's in Wallingford and one's in Hebron. We've got a child in Wallingford. Let's do that. So it's just when you go into that specialized world, there's really not a ton of choices. I think if we were to dip another toe into outplacement transportation, we're getting further into the transportation business, but it's highly volatile. If we have one child that's placed in Wallingford, we return them to district, or they move, then we're at a place where we're spending more to fund the driver, to find the bus, to fund all that. So that's my transportation
So
spiel.
what part of our vans are doing the outplacements versus the in-district kind of running
Yep.
around?
So the 3 vans, one is doing solely the transition program. So that's our young adults that are currently at the high school in Brownstone split. That van will occasionally, if there are breaks between job sites, do some in-district runs, a one-off. So a child has broken their leg, they need a ride to school, we will do that. You know, someone needs a ride midday to the library for tutoring, we will do that run. But that is solely earmarked for transition. The other 2 vans are doing outplacement runs and some in district ones. Because if you think about a kid going to school, your main time you need a van is morning time and dismissal time. It's that middle of the day time where either our drivers don't work if they're a part-time driver, or we will occasionally give them, for example, our students in the bridge program that are going up and down Main Street, essentially between Gildersleeve and Brownstone, or Valley View and Brownstone. So they will do that kind of midday in district stuff. The challenge is, you know, if we're operating one van, it's very part-time if it's solely outplacement. It's a morning run and an afternoon run, and it has to be someone that's willing to work those hours. So another driver of the transportation piece is just, do we have folks that are willing to work for 8 hours a week, 10 hours a week? We have phenomenal drivers right now, but as you know, I've had an opening for a backup driver for the entire year. So I wouldn't want to commit to a 4th van, one, giving the geographic issues without placement, and 2, I don't know if I could guarantee a driver to do that run if we were to invest in a 4th van.
Yeah, I hear you, but it also seems funny that like M&J and Death and all those people, they can find people that work in the morning and the afternoon and do a run.
I assume they have other things that they're doing because they have such a large pool of runs. So for example, a lot of our replacement kids, they'll have a morning driver that's one person and afternoon that's another. Sometimes it's different drivers every day. So I assume because they have a large pool of runs, they're servicing the whole state, they can shift people around. I'm happy to look into it, though. I want to honor the request, you know, to keep researching and keep talking. I just wouldn't commit at this stage to a 4th van because I don't know if I can staff it, and I don't know if it would generate the savings that we're hoping just based on where students are placed. But I will continue to look into it. I'm happy to research further. They've been an enormous asset to the district. I think if we did not have those, in district and outplacement runs, I'd be significantly over $1 million in that area. So they're a real savings and an asset.
So Sarah, just a quick question. We are very unlikely to be having 2 kids go to the same program, but have you explored East Hampton or one of the other schools that is going in this direction?
So
Can
yep,
we do-
M&J does that anyway. If they can, our rep there, Kelly, is lovely. If she can consolidate and share with another district, she will. So if you were to look, you know, student by student, sometimes if our student is stay with an East Hampton student, we would each get charged about 22,000 for it because we're sharing the run.
Can we do that with our own vans? Is that something that would insurance would allow? And
I'd have to look into it. It's a
I'm just
creative
curious.
idea. I think where we might get tricky, it would really be depend on where the child lives in the other district. So if you think, you know, we're going to Wallingford, would we pick up a Cromwell kid? Will we go up to East Hampton, drive over? I think it'd be really specialized. I'm committed to reaching out to districts and asking. You know, we could undercut the market and offer a lower rate, but we could do that. I think though, at a certain point, I would just caution that I would like my role to remain, you know, instructional leader, student services, and really just feeling like a van lady sometimes. So, yeah.
I talked about that. and,
Yep,
You know,
yeah.
I don't want you to be the fleet manager. I suggested that one of the drivers could take that role on and go and get the oil changed and clean and do whatever.
Yeah, I think oil changes and cleaning and vacuuming, I think that is absolutely something they can do. I think the high level creation of the runs, managing the drivers, the big picture thinking is really Olivia and I. And that is difficult to outsource. So I don't want to get us to a point where we are sitting in central office, you know, doing van stuff rather than being out with our students and our staff and working with them. Yeah, that's the priority.
All right. Well, just a thought that if we're going in a direction, we can pick up a kid on the way.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I hope that this board hears, since I've taken this role, the department is really taking on a lot of big initiatives. And I think one we've been enormously successful with is bringing in revenue to the district and generating savings. You know, the 2 proposals that Charles mentioned at the top, the Sabre Reading Program and possible tuitioning into transition students. That's something my department has brought forward. We've reduced our outplacements. When I took this job, we had 24. Right now we have 20. we're really working hard to work on our prevalence rate, on our outplacements, on things, on our disproportionality, things that are big drivers that contribute to how effectively our district serves our students with disabilities and how cost effectively we can do it. So I know the BCBA position has been a big point of discussion over the past few days, and I'm happy to speak to it. But I think my ask would be, and my, my pitch to you would be that we need to be funded at a high level to do the high level work we're doing. And we're doing it with my current level of staffing. And have committed, and I think I've shown as a department, we're willing to find those savings. We're willing to bring in revenue. We're willing to work incredibly hard to do that work. But we need resources to do that. And everything is a gamble in a budget, as Dr. Britton said, and certainly student services is. We don't know who moves in, who moves out. But what I do know is we need robust services in our district to safeguard us against unanticipated costs and also do right by our students and stay within our legal obligations. So I'm happy to speak specifically to the BCBA position cut because it has come up, I know, over the past few days, and we have some folks here to speak on behalf of that position. If the board is open to it, I'd be happy to speak a bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you jump in,
Yeah.
can I ask one clarifying question?
Sure.
Just about outplacements.
Mhm.
Your note says that you're budgeting for 21 total outplacements, but I only saw 18 students broken out under the outplacement list, and I was wondering if you're anticipating someone coming back in district, or just curious, like, are we anticipating 18, 21?
We're anticipating 21 right now.
21.
I'm not sure why they all didn't transfer over to the color sheet, but there will be 21.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and that's based on current enrollment,
That is current enrollment and current projections of folks who we are hoping to bring back.
Okay.
I have one other clarifying
Yep.
question. What accounts for the decrease in tuition?
Yep. So outplacement is categorized by the type of school it is. So private is a private school like a Ben Haven, like a Ben Bronze. LEAs is a district like us offering an outplacement. So if I had a student transition into our RISE program, it would be tuition to LEA. We had a student that was placed at an LEA, another neighboring district, before we had our bridge program. That student now is no longer there. The other one that you'll see, I believe it is Steph, is it Briscoe or no? There'll be open choice magnet, and that is if they're at like a CREC program. And then the other one is, I'm thinking, there's another category.
The LEA one is correct schools.
Yep.
5603 is private. That's it.
Private. Yeah.
Oh, one
Ed
is-
service agencies. We don't have anyone
We don't
there.
have any.
Yeah. So there's basically outplacement is the big umbrella. There's different types of schools and they are captured in different light items. Problem.
Is this a good point, folks? Are there other clarifying questions, or is this an okay point to ask Sarah to talk a little bit about the BCBA position?
Yeah.
So as Dr. Britton said off the top, these are certainly cuts that we didn't want to make. None of us, including Dr. Britton, are support of these cuts, but as he said, we need to remain fiscally responsible to our taxpayers in our town. I understand that completely. And just for all of you to know who are new to me, the BCBA position is dear to me because it was mine. That's what brought me to Portland 6 years ago. I was the founding BCBA, so I certainly am very aware of the need for that position because I did it for 4 years and founded the position. So that's one thing to know off the top. That's my bias there. I'm also going to speak a little about positions and not people, though I don't say that to say that the people in those two main roles that are effective, not fantastic. They're two of my right-hand people in this district. They're incredible clinicians. They're talented. I trust them with our highest need cases, but I want to make sure I talk about positions because people often move and change. So me not naming them or speaking about their work is purposeful. They are phenomenal and I could speak about their work for hours, but I'm going to speak about the position because that's really what's on, up for discussion tonight. Though Dr. Britton is correct, the role in terms of the hours that are in student IEPs would be filled by shifting someone. It still represents a cut of one clinical staff member and a staff member that works with our highest need students. So when we think about safeguarding ourselves against outplacement, against other unanticipated legal costs of litigation against the district around special education, our clinical staff that work with our highest need populations are the first line of defense. So reducing one clinical staff, though it is a shifting of responsibilities, is still something I would not advocate for because I feel to function at the level we're functioning, we need all of the clinical staff we have, particularly someone who works district-wide and works with our highest support needs students. I would also say that the reallocation of this role has two big impacts. One is our school psychologists who work district-wide, their roles and responsibilities would be significantly impacted. The clinician that would be reallocated from the high school has been doing a large amount of our testing district-wide. If that individual is reallocated to the Harbor program, because that Harbor program clinician would be moving into the BCBA line, that does shift responsibilities for evaluations to other folks in districts. So things like grade level SEL, counseling, 504 case management, those things would fall to other folks. So would the services be covered? Would we be BCBA list? Not at all. Other people's workloads would be increased as a result, and in my opinion, would not be best for students, staff, and families. I would also say, as a BCBA, it is very, very unlikely that a BCBA is in the bargaining unit. The individual who we're thinking of moving and myself are unicorns in a sense. Typically BCBAs are classified employees. I know many directors in the area, not one of them has a BCBA that's in the bargaining unit. It's very atypical for someone to be dual certified. Myself as a teacher and the other individual, the school psychologist. So again, we talk about positions and not people. I don't think we can readily count upon someone that's going to be in the bargaining unit and make that type of salary. In fact, I believe what we pay for BCBA is market rate, if not under. So that is something that we are vulnerable to change in that because we cannot count on that person being a member of a bargaining unit. I would also say the individual moving to the BCBA role is a fantastic clinician. That individual has brought stability to our Harbor program at the middle and high school. That is where we are most vulnerable to outplacements because it is our students who are much older, where we can often manage things like aggression, walking off grounds, property disruption at the elementary level. By the time we're getting into middle and high school, we are very vulnerable to requiring outplacement because those students are so big and they've been engaged in these behaviors for some time. So that program in my 6 years here has had, I believe, 5 teachers and many periods without a teacher and 4 clinicians and many time without a clinician. This individual has brought stability to the program. We hired this individual in January of last year. So he's had about a year in the position. I would like to safeguard that program and have some continuity of clinical support. Obviously, we talk about positions and not people, but in the world of therapeutic work with our high support needs students, people do matter. That relationship matters. And to continue to have movement in that program, I think would be a bit detrimental and would make us vulnerable to other costs.
What's the cost of eliminating that position?
I will ask Stephanie for the exact number.
About 93,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's well over 100 when you factor in other FICA benefits.
Okay, so benefits and other things that are being paid.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's not typical for a BCBA to be in a certified position?
It is not. So the BCBAs are not allowed to be in teachers' retirement unless they are operating under another license. So for example, my position was BCBA/special education teacher. This individual would be BCBA/school psych. Typically, BCBAs are really clinical staff and they don't have a teaching certification. So atypical for someone to be in TRB. We're really lucky that we have 2. That's really phenomenal. I think I, really gave you guys a good bang for your buck back in the day. So that would be atypical for us to have that. So that's my, thoughts on that position.
It's not only is atypical, but it was atypical to have somebody in that who was a generational talent.
Yeah. So, I would my pitch would be, I'm trying to do really important work around our prevalence rate, our outplacements, making us marketable, bringing in funds from other district. I was delighted to get a call from someone who said, hey, we heard Portland Special Ed's great. Can we tuition a kid? That's the work that's really key. And I would just say, I really would love to have my current clinical staff to continue doing it. And I'll promise you, we will work hard to generate savings. We will bring in funds. We will do the good work. I think we've proven as a department over the past, year and a half that I've been here that we can and will do it. So it would be my ask to the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. What questions about that position in particular?
What else would you cut to keep that position?
Well, I don't know that.
But I'm just, well, I'm gonna, look, I always ask the hard question and you don't have to answer and Charles doesn't have to answer, but obviously to keep that position means.
Yeah, the reason I don't want to answer that now is, again, I have to remind you that we were quoted a 26.7% increase. That's reduced to 20 now. I have 13 in the budget, right? It's when that number comes in for real, we don't want to
Oh,
I'll go back, but
Time.
we're,
understand.
we're, like I said, that we don't, there's still too many unknowns. I think it's really important for you to hear from Sarah and other folks who are here tonight and understand. I think we all stand here to say that none of those cuts in the second round are cuts I recommend. I do have to say, though, the first one I want back is not the BCBA, it's the classroom teaching.
It's a
position,
classroom.
right? So
Understood. Well, my question was rhetorical because it's a tough place to be. And there isn't a lot of fat in this budget. It's not like we've had fat budgets. We've been very fiscally responsible over many years with a zero budget a couple of years ago. You never get that back. So it's really rhetorical, but it's, where would you cut if you?
Right, and I think my answer, Meg, tonight, as of now, with the information we have, would be the opportunity to generate revenue through those two options that we discussed. That's how I would fund it as of now. I really don't have fat, as you said, in my budget. Those would be my two options, or, aggressively trying to bring students back from outplacement, but I would be committed to doing both of those things.
And if I can add to that too, every year we add paraprofessionals. Many years we've added a sixth kindergarten section, and we often, Stephanie and I are very careful that when we come to you with those asks, we're also saying, hey, we saw savings because we had a top step person retire and we replaced with a step one. We got seed grant money. We wrote, the Title IV grant that came out one year.
Or the mental
Meg
health
prevailed
grant.
with the state legislature and got the base amount increased to 13%.
I hope.
Our insurance broker went out and really strong armed the insurance company and they came in at 10% increase, not 13, right? Part of what makes this very difficult is it's very early. It's January, and every year this board is constantly adjusting the budget as Stephanie and I are identifying additional revenue streams or responding to different needs like outplacements that come in. And I have every reason to expect that we're going to spend all spring doing this, right? You're going to take action on a budget next Tuesday. I promise you, by the end of February, more things will change.
Oh, agreed.
Then by the end of April and by the end of May. In addition, we still have to work our way through the first selectman, the board of selectmen. We have many miles to go before we sleep. It wouldn't be really prudent to start engaging Sarah in discussions about revenues and other things she would cut. There will be important opportunities to do that as you start to ask questions that get comfortable with the possible lease for a new reading program. As Sarah puts out the word and we continue to get interest about students tuitioning in either to Bridge or Harbor or transition. I promise you, if all of those things line up and the insurance doesn't cream us as bad as we think it would, I would like to add back every single one of those second round things. And I would do it if we could come in under a 5% budget, right? But we also need to be very aware that anything above a 5% budget, and it may go there with insurance and the contracts we're negotiating and other things, that's where we start to get into fraught territory. Because I've been in towns where the community is angered by an increase they perceive as too high, and that we start to lose referendums, and then we're making the cuts in May and not now when we have time to plan for them in a thoughtful way. I've been in the Coventries of the world where we go through referendum after referendum all the way to the end of August. And that's not the culture in Portland, thank goodness, but I think it's because the community recognizes the hard, painstaking work that we've done in the cuts you've seen on the paper and through the rounds of cuts. So it's really important for you to hear Sarah and everybody here advocate for those positions. And I too want them back, but I also want the community to trust that we're fiscal stewards and to prevail at a budget referendum.
Absolutely.
That's the hardest part of this.
Yes.
I have one more clarifying question. Yeah. Does Harbor serve middle school and high school students or? just
Yes, middle and high.
And I know, and that's a good question, Sarah, because I think there was conversation last year during the budget cycle about whether there was a need at some point to separate out those programs to serve
Right.
students better. Is that something that that is still under consideration, or you still see a need for at some point in the future?
Absolutely, at some point. We did that with our life skills program
Yeah.
this year, and it has been essential that we've done that. The level of support and service to those students is much improved. We're able to retain folks in those two teaching roles. So yes, eventually, if our enrollment continues as it is, we would need to, yes, especially with sixth grade coming
You
up,
would
we would need to
anticipate needing
split.
two separate spaces.
Yes,
In programs.
yes.
Gotcha. And I know the conversations around generating revenue are premature. But you'd mentioned in a meeting yesterday that you'd had a request from another district that had a student who was interested in our bridge program and would be a good fit for our bridge program. And I know that in conversations around growing the bridge program, I mean, years ago when the board supported launching a bridge program, launching our own harbor program, that there was conversation that maybe someday that might be a possibility. But this is the first time that we've heard that, okay, now it actually might be a possibility right now. So my question is what, staffing aside, because we know how important that is, what would you need? What would you be waiting on in order to be able to say, yes, we can accept your student? Is it based on our own enrollment numbers and our own students' needs, or are there other pieces you'd need to fall into place?
Sure. So our students are first and foremost. I would want to make sure that we have space in all of our programs, Rise, Bridge, Harbor, even general case management. If there's ever occasionally we get those requests of kids that kind of need a fresh start. That would be number one. I think number two would be really transparent about how we put a rate sheet out to districts, what we are charging, how are we paying for the services the child needs. Steph and I worked on that with our Hartford billing. So I think that would have to be a planful conversation of, what are we putting out there to people that are interested? But I think first and foremost is the support that we have for our existing students and the enrollment in our programs. And that also means robust clinical support for all of them. Yeah, but I think it is it's a really wonderful sign. And thank you all for supporting us. That word of mouth is getting out there. I did no marketing for that piece. That was just people who heard that Portland's doing great things in student services. So that's a credit to all of you as well. But we need to continue that work.
Any other questions for Sarah right now?
I don't have any more rhetorical questions either.
Sure, maybe one more.
I promise.
It sounds like we're good for now, Sarah.
Okay, thank you so much.
So for the good of the order, I'll just check in. It's 9:30. I know we have folks that want an audience of citizens. I do want Chuck to go, if that's okay. Can we have?
Yeah, come on up, Chuck.
And then, I understand everybody's away from their families and I don't like that. So.
So yeah, really exciting to change the scope in which I was doing a budget this year, going from a building-based one to a much larger one with a lot of different moving parts. So it was a fun one, especially with, wanting to do flat funding and those things. But I have no narrative. I'll just kind of let you guys ask questions that you might have for those areas.
Good. Who has questions for Chuck that they want to jump into?
Well, are you loving your job now that you don't have to sort of the technology part of it? You just.
While the technology's not fun for me, I promise you, I work with it every day because the software side is where a lot of those areas live.
It is, but it must be a relief to have less of that in place of that part of the curriculum or that part of the budget, I guess.
I'll say it. I wasn't part of the previous, so I couldn't speak to that. What I had to have previously.
Having done it, I can tell you he does.
Yeah, that is right. This is budget.
District.
Yeah, for this year for a process, just so you know how we handled that, Bob and I really used it as a two-headed monster to address that piece of it because we found it very difficult to do that in isolation. So we really worked together, worked with the IT department, had multiple meetings to kind of get those pieces together. So there's a lot of coordination around that piece this year. To speak to kind of some of the pieces that kind of some of the principals spoke to earlier, a couple costs that the budget had to take on this year. The right to read grant ended. There's a significant software cost that comes with that program. So we had to incur that cost to continue the program. That's just for our teacher licenses to exist so that the teachers at Valley View can continue to use that our teachers at Gildas can continue to use that. So that's where some of the software, while it was flat, the request was to try and flat fund that software. There were new There is no new software. That's the only new piece because it is replacing what was previously grant funded. The increases that you might see in software are due to just the rates of software have been continuously skyrocketing and going up for what things cost on the market for continuing these products. And these software have become, akin to why you don't see many textbook requests each year is because that has become what textbooks are. So when you are looking to cut software, you're looking to cut at times the tier 1 curriculum and instructional materials. So asking those cuts, it becomes more and more challenging. There are less and less things that we call kind of tier 4 that we can easily cut or tier 3 than previously.
I think you did add a category of travel. Is
I
that-
did.
Yeah, what's that for?
So that was because we were having to pay those costs anyway. That's in teachers' contracts. They are due a stipend if a teacher is asked to go do professional development during the summer or on a weekend or just not during contractual time. We have to pay that. We also, by their contract, have to pay for travel reimbursements and for lodging should it be out of state. So we were having to go find that money anyway in the budget, and I thought it prudent to purposefully plan for that as opposed to scramble to find where am I paying that for those costs. So that was the intention behind that piece. We've had the practice the past few years. Ryan had started it, and actually Charles, I believe, had started with the Lucy Calkins and when we originally did the Resource Workshop, professional development. Ryan had continued with PLC workshop. Mike and I had done it and did it this year with the RTI folks. For RTI, trying to continuously keep a core group of individuals in a large scale train to focus to kind of align with our district improvement efforts each year. I do plan to continue that practice going forward. It really helps keep experts within our teaching pool that can help us do a lot more of our professional development in-house as opposed to out-house by getting that expert training outside. So I do plan to have another round of that going in for next year. A lot of that is grant funded, but the travel piece is not. So that part comes into our budget.
Which I really have appreciated hearing about that throughout the last year or so. I mean, I know you've updated curriculum subcommittee regularly about the professional development that's happening in district, and we get those updates every month with your report. But the PD that's happening, that's much of it's being led by Portland staff members. which
Absolutely.
is, I think, so smart and so incredible that we're helping grow our staff members that way. I appreciate continuing to invest in folks that way.
Absolutely. A lot of our funding is about funding the train the trainer model so that we can continuously provide that PD in-house and get some expert training, whether it's through SEL or through curriculum.
Yeah, I just think it's really smart. And this might be again a question more for Stephanie, but can I ask about that purchase services line and what the big bump is about?
That's the contract for AOS.
That's the AOS contract. Okay.
So originally,
Thank you.
we always had
Yeah.
$8,000
Yeah,
in
yeah.
there, when they were just doing kind of some work for us, so we increased it to 56,
Gotcha.
which is increase of the 40.
I was having a hard time connecting where everything
Mhm.
fell. Gotcha.
So
That's
that
the
actually is,
contract.
it's AOS and then it's our internet CEN. It's in there too.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
No.
Are there other specific questions for Chuck?
If you look at the color sheet too, it breaks it out too.
Yes. Thank you, Stephanie.
One thing I will just say, the priority that exists already for those second round of cuts and things back, people should always come first, and those are the pieces we need back. I will say, this is the first year we will not have had budgeted for curriculum writing. We are in the midst of NEASC accreditation. We have a lot of initiatives going district-wide. This does make it very challenging in putting that work forward. We will figure it out. I will work with our talented curriculum leaders and our teachers, and we will find a way to make that work. I will say, I want to strongly state now, and I said it in my narrative, doing that for a 1 year is something that is manageable. Doing that as a continuous cost of not funding curriculum writing would put us very behind the times in terms of what we're providing our kids. So while it could be a 1 year savings, I would caution against expect that increase to come next year. And I just put a future caution over going to that as a frequent cut.
And I think as Charles brought up, if there's a way to fit in even some small amount of it in
Yep.
June before the year is up, that would probably be very valuable. But Kim, I think it was Kim who maybe had raised a question ahead of time that really had to do with, you know, if no curriculum writing happens over the summer, and if you're trying to capture time next year that's either would have been professional development time or you know, otherwise used by teachers in other ways, how's that going to impact staff in other ways, and, you know, less professional development?
So
What
we
I-
unfortunately have, and Charles talks about the legislative breakfast, the unfunded mandates are huge. I would say, yeah, it'd be great. I would take some of the PD days and put some curriculum writing in there. The amount of hours we have to devote to professional development trainings are significant that are mandated. So it's not as easy to just replace some with curriculum writing. We have our 2-hour delays with our teachers who want and expect to use that time for their personal professional development goals. So, and we've committed to that piece. So there becomes less and less of that time. It becomes challenging, and doing something like doing it during the school year incurs the costs of increased sub-rate costs, which then we're going to pay for it one way or another. I would rather pay for it in ways that don't take teachers necessarily out of the classroom more frequently.
100%.
So it's, again, the summer curriculum, it is a challenging piece to do with because it's a voluntary, can't, you know, forced summer curriculum, but we generally get a lot of bang for our buck in that. We have teachers, and I will say the work that they do far more valuable than the 2 or 5 hours they've been allocated for that curriculum writing, because they go into that with their ideas that they've been ruminating on for a long time, and they continue that work well after they've been contracted to do that curriculum writing in the summer. So we get a lot in this district out of that, a lot of value out of that.
Is there concern that if we're trying to squeeze it in June, that teachers may be burnt out at the end of the school year and not as interested in participating in that if it can't happen later in the summer?
It's a concern. I mean, it's a risk. It's like anything, it's a gamble. I can't, you know, if that's the timeline, that's when people are free. That's, you know, it's a case by case basis, and we're a small staff, so it's really, I can't guarantee I have all the people needed. I would probably, if we had funds, targeting specifically curriculum writing time for those programs that are on our district improvement plan, like the math curriculum integration, would be the priority for that kind of end of June time if we had any recaptured funds from the district of savings. But to that end, I still am very much in support of that being ranked well behind those areas of people that are really the people hands on deck for those people, for our students.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chuck?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. So I think that we should, because it's getting late and what he wants to set up an alarm. Looking at you, Charles. I think we should probably pause there on board questions if everyone's comfortable. And we'll pick up again with board questions for our administrators on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. So then, is everyone okay with that? Are there any final questions or comments or thoughts from board members before we move on? Everyone can ruminate, and we'll pick it up on Thursday. So we're gonna move on to public comment. And at this point, I would offer the reminder that this board is not per our bylaws, we are not able to engage in any back and forth during public comment. We invite you to share your thoughts with the board. We will hear you and are grateful for your input, but we're not able to answer any questions or do any back and forth during public comment. And we do ask you to please keep your comments to about 3 minutes so that we have time to hear from anyone who wishes to address us during this point in our agenda. So do we have anyone with us in person who'd like to address the board? And we would also just ask you to start by sharing your name and your address, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nicole Parisi. I am the BCBA for the district currently. I don't live in town, but I'm just here to speak on my own behalf. So I just want to briefly speak about my role in this position and the implications of eliminating a high need clinical role. While the proposal would assign BCBA responsibilities to another individual, the district would lose a dedicated district-level clinician. This represents a reduction in clinical capacity, not a preservation of services. Currently, I maintain a direct caseload of approximately 30 students across all 5 buildings. In addition to direct services, I support many more students indirectly through consultation with specialized programs, classroom teachers, and building teams. I receive consistent referrals as behavioral needs arise across the district. This role includes direct and classroom behavioral support in responding to building level crisis calls. Being able to respond in real time allows for clinically informed intervention that supports student safety, staff response, and post-crisis stabilization. I conduct required evaluations and assessments essential for educational planning. And I also teach the PMT refresher courses for the district, so making sure staff are up to date with de-escalation strategies and crisis intervention. Under this proposal, these evaluations and other duties would be reallocated to other clinical staff, further increasing caseloads, delaying timelines, and reducing the district's ability to respond proactively to student needs. The impact of this change would be felt immediately in our most vulnerable programs. In the Harbor program, stability is critical. This program in particular serves middle and high school students with significant social emotional needs who rely on consistency and established relationships for regulation and safety. Disrupting those relationships increases the likelihood of regression, behavioral escalation, and reduced access to instruction. The loss of district-level clinical staff reduces preventative SEL work, limits consultation availability, and weakens the systems currently in place to support students and staff. Under the proposed model, the district's BCBA capacity would be entirely dependent on one individual transitioning into a new role. If that individual leaves for any reason, the district would be required to hire for this position with no guarantee of cost savings. And as Sarah mentioned before, it's not common to have that dual certified individual. In all the districts I've worked in, I've never seen anyone hired in that type of bargaining unit. Assigning a BCBA title to another role is not the same as maintaining district-wide clinical capacity. This work does not disappear when a position is eliminated. It's delayed, fragmented, or left unaddressed, increasing risk to students, staff, and the district. I respectfully urge the board to reconsider this proposal. Preserving this tiny clinical position maintains stability in Harbor, protects SEL support, ensures timely evaluations, and safeguards district-wide behavioral capacity. I want to close by sharing how meaningful this work has been to me. After spending my career in much larger districts, I've come to value the close-knit nature of this community where relationships matter and collaboration truly supports students. I love working with our students and supporting them through challenges so they can be successful, safe, and engaged in school. It's been a privilege to work alongside staff and families here, and I remain deeply committed to supporting Portland students. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
I'm Alicia Holloway. I live at 24 Foley Road, but I'm also the special education teacher in the Bridge program. So I wanted to kind of speak in person, just as like a representative for our specialized programs in support of Nicole's role in the BCBA position. So I want to begin by acknowledging that I know that budget season is incredibly difficult and involves many different aspects. I respect the responsibility that you guys have as a board and balance fiscal constraints with the needs of students and staff, and I appreciate the work that goes into this process. That said, I'm deeply concerned with the impact of reducing a dedicated special education and behavioral support at a time when students' social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs are increasing. These needs directly affect learning, safety, and long-term outcomes. We're talking about bringing students in from outplacement or possibly bringing students into the Bridge program. I think the success of the Bridge program is because of the consistency of the staff. Kelsey and I have been consistent staff members in that program for the last 5 years. If we're talking about turnover, talking about needing that support, that's key. That consistency is key. It is the intervention that we're providing in those roles. I understand that the district may propose maintaining BCBA level support through internal staffing and reassignment. I appreciate the effort to use existing personnel efficiently. However, I want to respectfully emphasize that reassigning roles is not the same as preserving services. Special education supports rely on stability, specialization, and capacity. When we replace a dedicated BCBA position with a chain of role shifts, we may be able to say every position is filled, but we often lose the consistency and depth that makes those supports effective, especially in specialized programs where relationships and proactive intervention are essential. In these programs, consistency is not a preference. Consistency is part of the intervention. It's what prevents escalation, protects instructional time, improves outcomes, and helps staff sustain the work. I'm also concerned about the broader impact on staff. When specialized roles are removed and responsibilities are absorbed elsewhere, we increase caseload pressure and reduce the time available for other essential functions. Even with excellent staff, which we have, there's only so much capacity. Over time, these changes increase burnout, reduce retention, and ultimately affect students. I understand that the need to be fiscally responsible, but I worry that we are achieving budget savings by reducing specialized special education capacity, and that we may pay for this later through increased crisis response, reduced program stability, and potentially more restrictive placements, meaning outplacements. I respectfully urge the board to reconsider eliminating this contracted position, or at minimum, delay this decision until the district can present a plan that demonstrates clearly and realistically how BCBA services will remain consistent and effective without reducing capacity or destabilizing our current programs. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you, Alicia.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Michael O'Rourke and I live at 35 Apple Tree Lane in Portland. My son Patrick is a senior at PHS in the Life Skills program. I am here this evening to speak in favor of the additional funding being allocated to the transition program. I believe the program is being given a unique opportunity to enhance the services that are provided to the students in the program. Securing a facility in the downtown area of Portland in which to call home provides stability for the program and the opportunity to bring it on par with programs in neighboring communities. A house with a working kitchen and fully functioning appliances like a washer and dryer will allow the students to continue their life skills curriculum. With the location of the house in a commercial area, it will provide the opportunity to develop a retail business that will allow for vocational training. And also being on Main Street, it provides the opportunity for students to learn the ins and outs of public transportation. I mentioned taking advantage of the opportunity of being presented can bring the program on par with neighboring communities. It'll take time to do that, but I think it's important to do. If the program achieves critical mass, you can supplement it with students from other districts, as has been discussed, when you have ebbs and flows in the population for the life skills population in Portland. As you know, this year you had to add an additional life skills teacher in the middle school based on the increase in students. Won't be long before those kids are in transition age, so I think it's important for the board to approve the additional funding now that Dr. Britton has included in his proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in person who wishes to address the board at this point? What about online? All right, that concludes public comment, and just as a reminder, there will be more opportunities for public comment on our Thursday agenda. In addition, the board has received communication from community members by email, which will be made public and shared at our next regular board meeting. And the board really does appreciate and value everybody's input. So thank you for the comments.
Could I make a recommendation that we start a half an hour earlier on Thursday so that if we are creeping up to 10 o'clock, we might get out a little bit earlier? Just a suggestion before we adjourn.
Let me talk to Tricia afterwards about whether that's even a possibility at this point in terms of changing the meeting start time with only 2 days notice.
Yeah. There's also a junior parents meeting. I don't know what happens in what spaces, but
Okay.
Maybe
think the agenda's posted.
The agenda is already posted for Thursday. Is that correct, Tricia?
It's just top 20.
We do have
Yeah,
24 hours.
Just a suggestion, because everybody's. All of our
Yeah.
friends over there work all day and.
Yeah, I hear that.
I gotta tell you,
Just-
if it's okay with you, they won't come. They're- I think that if we can get Bob, Stephanie and I, we can answer all the questions. It's late night, they're
Yeah.
here early.
I know.
Yeah, okay. I think we should probably, because it's been posted already, I think we should probably leave it unless there is a really compelling reason to start earlier. Other than I know we're all tired, I am too.
I don't think we'll go till. It's like,
Okay.
you really only have Bob, me, Stephanie, and then more discussion, and then you, tomorrow night, Thursday, you don't even need to take action. It's just.
Yeah.
Leave, ask more questions by email, and then the following Tuesday, it's as an action item under new business on the board check. I don't think you will.
Yeah.
Today was the marathon.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, the next item on the agenda is possible action. We are not taking action. So I'm gonna move to an adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Meg. Seconded by Annie. For the discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned. Everybody, please get home safely. Okay.